What's up and welcome back to Bar Down Talking Hockey Podcast, episode number 95, presented by the Barroom Network. My name is Vinny Parisi, and I am currently getting destroyed by a blizzard outside right now. And this right here, this is Frankie Mueller, and he's wearing a Seattle Mariners baseball hat, which makes me dream, think, want summer to be here. Frank, is there a particular reason you're wearing that today?
Um, Not really.
It
I
is
know.
coincidental with our guest.
I know that's what you were going for.
And you know what? Because of it, I was going to wear my Seattle Kraken hat just because it would be coincidental with our guest. They were playing the Devils when he got famous, so I was actually angry with the Kraken in that little time. So that's why
I was gonna wear my Kraken gear, but then I'm like, I've been wearing that a lot lately, and I knew that our good friend guest of the show today lives in Seattle. So I figured I don't have any Devils gear, so
we got to change that.
I want to have somewhat
How the hell do you not have a Devils anything after being on this show for over a year? What the H is wrong
I don't
with
think
you?
I do. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
that's a
talking
joke.
anything. Like, I have stuff with Nashville in it, Washington. Like, but they're not Nashville items particularly. But it's like
Yeah.
when the Blackhawks face the Predators in certain games, I have a hat where it's like that in the Capitals, but nothing Devils related.
Yeah, I'm gifting you a Devils hat to wear on this show for when we have sick Devils guests, because that's one of the most guests, I would say, just because of the nature of me. But let's bring in our big guest. You might have seen on the internet over the last couple weeks, one of the single coolest things I have ever seen on the internet that relates real life
Really is.
to sports. I've never seen anything like it. Maybe it's just because I'm dumb and live in a bubble, but this thing is one of the coolest things I've seen. Last week, the New Jersey Devils were taking on the Seattle Kraken. And right before the game, this picture went viral on Twitter of someone who took an airplane and flew it in the shape of a New Jersey Devils logo and picked up the track. And I don't even know how you would explain it, how it would happen. So who are we going to have better on the show right now than the pilot who manned that aircraft into the shape of a New Jersey Devils logo, Jeremy Katz? He is a pilot and a New Jersey Devils fan from Seattle. Jeremy, how we doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
It's actually funny because last week, Jeremy, Vinny always asked me, what's my favorite hockey story of the week? And your story was my favorite hockey story of the week because I just found it absolutely fascinating. And I'm glad to have you on the show today. So thank you again.
Pleasure to be here. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Jeremy, how? Like what? Frank, put up the picture so that people can get a visual of what's going on. And then, Jeremy, describe how this happened. You drew a Devils logo with your airplane.
Yeah. So, I mean, in simple terms, that's exactly what I did. I just took a flight and planned everything out. So if you then looked at the flight track after I got back, it traced out the Devils logo. So that's what I planned to do. And only question was, how well was I going to do it? Found that out as soon as I got home.
So it's interesting because, like, before I get into the whole, Devils logo and ask you a little bit more on that, you're obviously a big plane guy. Your
Yes.
Twitter handle's Airplane Nut 312. So I know how much you love airplanes. It's like, why do you love them? Like, what got you into it? What's your favorite type of plane? Like, what's your whole background with airplanes?
So I've loved airplanes really since middle school. Fell in love with them. We took a trip to Europe, 5 flights in 3 weeks, and it just kind of all came together. And I particularly like commercial aviation, but really anything in the sky that's flying around makes me happy. 747 is even better. So if I can see one of those, that will make my day. All I have to do is see one of them, and it's a great day no matter what. But I went to school and am trained as an aerodynamicist. So I work as an engineer designing airplanes for Boeing. And while I was in school, I started taking flying lessons, which I think was a pretty natural complement to my interest in aviation. And ever since then, I've just been flying around for fun. And on this particular day, it was, what can I go do that's a challenge that brings in another hobby, brings in a slight sporting current event, and there you go.
Awesome.
I understand that airplanes, when they're flying in the air, there's this thing called air traffic. and you have to make sure that two airplanes aren't crossing over in the same path.
Very important.
That would be incredibly dangerous, obviously. And so when you're going out there for fun, tracing a Devils logo with your airplane in terms of your direction and where you're going, how does air traffic control work with that? Do you have to coordinate that? I mean, how does that work?
So in this particular case, there was actually no coordination whatsoever, but there was a lot of planning involved. So if you start looking around the Seattle area, there's a fair amount of terrain that you have to deal with. So as I was scoping out where can I go and do this, I had to look first. SeaTac owns a lot of the airspace, and I can't go into that. So I had to stay out of their way no matter what. Then it was find a place that had enough open, just flat, low terrain that I could get the size of the logo that I wanted in one spot without risking that if I go a little bit off, all of a sudden, the mountains are going to start to build up, and obviously that's not good. At that point, then I was looking at, of my available options, which ones are more or less likely to have traffic. So I had one option I was originally going to use, eventually decided that because of weather, it wasn't the best choice, and I opted for a different one with the consideration that while it's usually busier, given that it was a blustery, bumpy night, it was raining, it wasn't nice flying weather. I made the assumption, the hope that there wouldn't be much traffic out there, and I was right. There ended up being no planes that flew through the entire time. So in some sense, there was some luck involved, but at the same time, I was just playing the odds that it was probably going to work out given everything else. And also the fact that I just did it somewhat into the evening, so there's not a lot of training flights going on then. Even a lot of transient flights are starting to slow down. It was playing the odds.
So obviously, like you said, there's a lot of preparation that goes involved with this. And I was trying to, when I was telling Vinny about this story last week, I was saying it's not as easy as plugging it into a car GPS and turning right on a certain street, because a lot more goes involved. There's no directions when they're in the air. There's no street signs on where to turn. So how exactly did you manage to plan it out and map it out and know where to go on, where to turn in the air and stuff like that? How, in terms of that, how did you manage to do it?
So in the easiest thing that's come along in the last decade or so is iPads are now ubiquitous in the cockpit. So instead of the old paper charts that really would have made this difficult, if not impossible, now all of my charts are on my iPad and I have a GPS on it. What I ended up doing was I took a transparency, if you remember back in your elementary school days, same kind of thing. I traced the logo on that. Then I taped that over my iPad, and I put a couple marks on my chart within the iPad, and I put a couple marks on the transparency itself so I could line everything up. Because when I took off, the spot that I was going to fly this wasn't even on my screen yet. It was too far south. So I put all of that together, and then as soon as I took off, I got close enough. I was able to line everything up, and now I know the logo is exactly where I planned on it being, which again is important because maybe a mile or two isn't a huge difference, but knowing that the mountains are starting to creep up if I go a little bit off of where I planned, part of my safety buffer was knowing that when I lined everything up, it was all built around, as long as I stay in this area, I'm totally safe. There's nothing for me to hit on the ground. So I took off, lined everything up, and I just had one starting point that was go fly here. And when I fly here, make the first turn and then just keep going. So I do have a track underneath, but that was covered by the trace, so I couldn't really see it. It was much more watching my little airplane logo on the iPad. And as long as it stayed centered under what I was supposed to do, I was generally going to be getting it right.
Okay.
So you knew what part of the logo you were doing at the time you were doing it, right? You'd be, oh, right now I'm doing the tail of the J, or, here I'm at the top with the devil horns.
Yes, if you think to a commercial flight where you watch your little map move around, I've got the same little airplane going along. Obviously, the difference is some of the legs that I was doing were half a mile, and at 100 miles per hour, that goes by pretty fast.
Yeah. Right. Did it take you more than one attempt?
No, and you don't get a second try because you take off and then the entire flight is tracked as one line until you land and shut off the airplane. So if you were to screw up anything, if you go back, you're going to see what you messed up first. So there's no way to erase like you would with a pencil.
Right.
What you'd have to do is go land somewhere, turn everything off, and start over from scratch.
And you didn't do the. You just
No,
it was one.
this was I got in the airplane, went up, did it, went home.
That's awesome.
I mean,
Wow.
I'm looking at the picture right now.
Yeah, I'll pull it
I-
back up.
I
because, I mean, that's
honestly-
just truly.
That's the craziest thing I've ever seen. The creativity behind it. Like I've again, I said it when we first brought you on. I've never seen anything like it. Now, I'm assuming being in Seattle and, you know, the Devils were in town, was that predetermined? Like, when did you decide that you were going to do this? Is it a coincidence that the Devils were playing the Kraken?
no,
when
not
you
at
did
all.
this?
I
Okay.
started thinking about this when they came back into Seattle last year. They came in April. And just in the back of my mind, it was, can I do something with airplanes that involve the Devils? And I didn't have enough time to really come up with an idea for that game. But my mind started thinking about it, and I settled it'll be fun to go and draw the logo. When the schedule came out over the summer, I penciled in, obviously, the date of the game because, of course, I'm going to go. And then I just put a note at the beginning of the week saying, if the weather's nice, go and draw the Devils logo. And I made that calendar notice email me 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, you know, just progressively so I couldn't forget that it was in mind. Obviously, weather's always a question. I can't plan that until a few days out or even day of to some degree. You know, my choice to change where I did it was 10 minutes before I left for the airport. I looked at the weather, decided I had planned multiple locations, but I officially changed it at the very last second. But in terms of scoping out the locations, drawing everything out, where am I going to do it, how, that I've been working on for weeks prior.
Okay. Now, was this the first time you've ever done something like this? And also, would you ever do something like this again?
It was the first time I ever tried it. And absolutely, there are other things that I will be doing in the future.
Could you share some of those things, or are those like keeping them down the DL?
I think some of them are going to be on the DL. The one that I have publicly stated is, as soon as the Devils give me a reason to draw the Stanley Cup, you can expect a much bigger Stanley Cup.
Oh wow, much bigger. Okay.
That's actually sick. They need to win this thing. I'm like obsessed with this. I think this is legitimately one of the coolest things. So now I want to ask you, why the Devils? I live in Chicago and I'm a Devils fan. Everybody thinks I'm a weirdo. There's an original 6 team 40 minutes from me. You are from a place that hadn't had an NHL team in 50 years or longer than that. What's going on? How did you become a Devils fan?
So I grew up in New Jersey.
Okay.
Which I grew up, I was in the same town from the day I was born until I graduated high school. And I grew up in the 90s. So the Devils, I think, would have been my team regardless. But the 90s into the early 2000s were a pretty great time to be a Devils fan no matter what. So all the more so, it was just everything worked out. As early as I can remember being a hockey fan, it was always the Devils. I learned to skate at the rink that was at the time their practice rink. Now they have a new one in Prudential Center. Every once in a while, you'd go for a public skate and they'd have a practice. We once walked in on their Christmas party and then summarily got kicked out when they realized, oh, this isn't supposed to be open to the public. But it's just everything was always Devils, and they were incredibly successful for the whole time I was growing up. So it made it fun, but it's New Jersey's team. I was in New Jersey. I think it's a natural thing. And even with the Kraken now, I'll root for them 80 games a year. I love that the NHL's here. I love that it's bringing up more hockey and more opportunity. They're doing a ton of great stuff for the community, getting kids involved, adults involved in playing. But at the same time, I've been a Devils fan for my whole life, and that's not about to change.
I love that. Jeremy, I noticed that your Twitter picture is a photo of you and your son.
My nephew.
Or your nephew, and you're wearing a Danico jersey.
Correct.
And I saw that you got a picture with Mr. Devil because of everything that's been going on. So how has life been after this whole taking flight? Well,
it was a lot more attention than I expected to get. I I threw it up there, and I hope someone will see it. Someone will go and smile. Maybe the Devils will pick it up a little bit and say, "Hey, nice job." And then it became interviews for print, radio, TV. I was on the Devils broadcast during the game, and this was so much more than I could have possibly expected. But at the same time, it's also just been a great response, whether it's from the Devils faithful and just fans from around the league that don't care about the Devils at all, but just think it was something neat to do. And if I can make some people happy from it, maybe promote general aviation a little bit as a fun hobby, then I really couldn't ask for more than that.
When did you realize that this was bigger than you even dreamed of? I mean, your tweet has 215,000 views, thousands of likes. I mean, this thing blew up.
Absolutely. And I threw up the tweet, Wednesday morning. So I did it Tuesday night. I put it up Wednesday morning. And I was talking to some coworkers. And I said, yeah, you should tag some more people. So I had originally tagged the Devils. And then I added on a whole bunch of the Devils reporters and some of the big Devils accounts. And I went to a meeting for half an hour. And then I got back from that meeting and just saw it going crazy. And at that point, it was kind of clear it was going to take off. No pun intended.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I kind of want to get a few questions on the Devils this season, Jeremy. They're
Sure.
hot again. They've been playing pretty well. They've had their ups and downs this year, from their long winning streaks to their losing streaks, and now they're back to winning ways again. And that, like me and Vinny discuss week after week, that happens with some of the best teams in the league. But ultimately, are they capable of winning the cup this year, or are they lacking something?
So I think it's tough to say because it's still a really young group. What I think the best way for me to put it is I don't really have incredible expectations for where they'll go in the playoffs, but I see a young core that's going to be around for a very long time. And however much success they have, whether it's these recent games where they've had a bad period or not even a great game and they've still scraped away a point, they've gotten into overtime and then won it a couple games in a row now. I see that this is a huge learning year for them. The core of this team isn't going anywhere. So whether it's learning how to win those games where you're not playing great, or you don't win a game, but then you come back and you play well the game after that. If you look at those seasons in the past that we've had recently, they have one bad game and then it fell for games and games after that, and they never really got back to a winning way afterwards. And that's what I see as being so different this year. You've got all these new guys who are just taking huge strides. Would it be awesome if they won the cup this year? Of course, because who doesn't want to see their team win? But whether it's this year or it's 2 or 3 years down the line, I see a real recipe for success right now. So I'm not as worried immediately because I just think the future is so bright.
Speaking of bright futures, that game you were at against the Kraken was one of the I don't want to make it sound like he was terrible, but Jack Hughes didn't have his best game in that game against the Kraken. Correct. And I think the whole team was kind of in a little bit of a lull. It was the end of a long road trip. They were playing the best team of any team they played on the road trip, the Kraken, in my opinion. The Kings rival them a little bit, but it was close. And it was the end of a road trip. They're probably ready to go home. The legs weren't what we're normally used to seeing from them. But then Jack Hughes is just so good that, like, he was playing terrible, and all of a sudden he's just like, okay, well, it's time to turn on the Jets. We got to get this thing tied. And he freaking got the puck, came into the offensive zone, dangled around a little bit, did his little thing, and Nico Hischier was the beneficiary in front of the net, got the game tied, forced overtime. What do you make of the silliness that is number 86?
I mean, he's just incredible. And however well he played in the Kraken game, look at his pass last night. That was... I didn't even realize it when it first happened, and they start showing the replays, and you realize that wasn't an amazing man. That was just absolutely an incredible pass. But just watching him blossom into the superstar, and when you have the first overall pick and you're wondering how's it going to work out, and he started out a little bit undersized, wasn't just showing magic all the time like the Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews who just tore up the league the second they came in. But all of a sudden, he's being talked about for the heart, and he's just putting up points night after night. He's not doing it the easy way, but he's making exceptional plays day in and day out. So you're fine. Maybe against Seattle, he'd have a great game, but just like the other guys, he had one bad game and he turned it right around.
Yeah, we talk about Jack Hughes and how good he is and Nico Hischier, but a lot of people kind of shy away from talking about Jesper Bratt a lot, which I think he's one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle on this Devils team. And I told Vinny, if he goes down with an injury, that could hurt the Devils in a big way. I think he's one of the biggest pieces on this team right now. So what's your take on Jesper Bratt?
So, I mean, he's incredible. He's so much fun to watch. And I think you're right that all of these guys play huge roles, but it doesn't have to be the flashy guys, because think about what happened when Nate Bastian went out. Arguably, he's a fourth liner. He's not someone who's there to put up a lot of points, but when he left, it affected the Devils significantly. At the same time, coming out of December, we got a couple guys back. Other guys like Marino are still out, but now they're finding ways to win again. And I think that harkens back to what are they learning this season, that whatever success they have by the end of the year, what I'm really looking forward to is if they find the ways to play and be successful when someone's out of the lineup. I don't think we really saw that in December, but I think now we're starting to see that build up. And that's what's exciting. And yes, when you have Jesper Bratt, Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Dougie Hamilton, all healthy and producing, it's super fun and exciting to watch. But there's just so much more that's there, and that's what I'm really looking forward to, and watching that continue to build.
And that's another person you touched on there that I wanted to bring up. You pointed out to us before the game that you're wearing a Niedermayer jersey, and I think Niedermayer is probably the best defenseman in the history of at least best offensive defenseman in the history of the Devils. Now we're looking at Dougie Hamilton, though. He had a tough year last year with injury, broken jaw, whatever. This year he comes in, mixed expectations. I think he's a Norris Trophy caliber defenseman at this point in the year. I don't know if he'll win it or be nominated, but he'll be in the conversation.
Oh, for sure.
2 games in a row now. He tied the game last night and then won it in overtime the night before, or two days before. He won it in overtime. A power play goal assisted by Jack Hughes both times. And you brought up the Hughes pass. In my opinion, it's the greatest play Jack has made in a Devils uniform. We saw some, incredible stuff with the development team, but in a Devils uniform, it's Jack's best play. But Dougie Hamilton was the beneficiary. He's been unbelievable. What have you made of his season so far?
I mean, I think it's been great. Last year was disappointing just because he never really got going. He got injured, and then it was really hard to come back from that. So this is the year that I think everyone's expecting last year, when he's going to take over the team. And he never got the legs to do it last year, but now we're seeing what happens when he is healthy. And now you're seeing why he's worth that cap hit that he got. And it's so much fun to watch him, and just the excitement that he brings between some of those subtle plays, and sometimes it doesn't even look like he's trying, but he just rips a shot and it beats everybody.
We've mentioned a lot of great Devils. I mentioned Mr. Devil a little bit earlier in our show, but how cool is it to meet him? And I think he got to try on his rings, right? His Stanley Cup ring.
Not only that, he insisted that I put on his ring.
Wow. That is so cool. How was it? Like, did you talk to him? You got to know him? Like, it had to be a good experience for you.
Oh, it was fantastic. So in truth, I've been trying to hunt him down for years at Vancouver games before I even got to Seattle, because he does the broadcast. And I remember even once going in, and the TV guy who's filming for the pregame little clips of people walking through the turnstiles, he's like, "Oh yeah, Danico's here. Maybe you'll find him." And I've never found him, never been able to run into him. Then this happens. He had retweeted the tweet that I put out, and I just kind of replied, "Is there any chance that I could meet you, maybe sign my jersey?" He's like, "Yeah, just send me a message." So we have a little DM conversation in the background, and I get to the arena. He, true to his word, I tell him, "Hey, I'm here," and he says, "Meet me down at this section. Now, I'm happy to say hi." And I actually understand. I think he stuck around for at least half an hour talking to other fans afterwards and taking pictures and signing things. But he was down there, signed my jersey, had a nice little chat, and it's fun because when I was a kid, he was this really, really mean-looking guy who has no teeth, and he's tough, and he's going to beat everybody up, and he's just the biggest teddy bear of a guy. So And also, I've just been listening to him for so many years calling these games, so I know what his face looks like, but now I can put a real person to that, and that's just tons of fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. Dano's amazing. He's been a friend of the program, and we've had him on. I understand you went on the Let's Go Devils podcast, and I know Sam Wu, talking to him, and he told me to mention him to you. Shout out Sam Wu. But Dano's awesome. We've had a good relationship with him. I'm happy to hear that you got to meet him. He's a really, really cool dude. Did you enjoy his play style? Like, do you kind of wish we could get back to that in terms of the NHL, or are you kind of liking this finesse thing that we're heading towards?
I think we've got a faster paced game right now that I think hockey is better to watch. Every generation has its pluses and minuses. Certainly the old grabbing and hooking style, it had its place, I guess, but there's something to be said for watching these superstars just make exceptional plays. And if every day someone could just haul everybody down no matter what, would Connor McDavid and Jack Hughes and Austin Matthews, would these guys still make great plays? Yes. Would they be in the highlight reel absolutely every single night? Probably not, and certainly not in the ways they are now. You don't skate through an entire team when all of them can hook you down.
That makes sense. I agree.
Absolutely. And, the trade deadline is coming up March 3rd. Devils are going to be buyers, obviously, not sellers. Is there anybody that you would like to see the Devils try and acquire? I know Timo Meier has been a hot topic for New Jersey Devils fans. And
So,
is there anybody else that you would like to see the Devils acquire?
I've seen a lot on Timo, and even just watching him play in the Sharks game, a week or two ago, though he's a very, very skilled guy, and I think he fits. He's a younger player, so you get him for a while. What I really want to see is the Devils not go and just rent players. I think Fitzgerald's been pretty clear that's not the direction they want. We've got a great pipeline, so yes, we have assets. Yes, we could trade some away, but I think there's so much future. It's not a do everything to win just this year. So if someone like Timo Meier comes along and we have the opportunity to not only get him, but get him and sign him long-term, and now he becomes a real piece to the puzzle, that could be a phenomenal use of some of that pipeline talent that we have. Getting someone who's going to come in and they're going to stick around for 2 or 3 months, and however much they help us, like, thank you for your services, that's gone. I don't think that's what we're looking for right now.
Fair
You
enough.
mentioned going to a Vancouver Canucks game. You get to a lot of Vancouver games. Is there anywhere else you like to travel to go see, whether it be the Devils or just NHL hockey in general?
It's been a long time since I was at a game that didn't involve the Devils. The last couple of years, I haven't been able to make it up to Vancouver for other commitments, but in the past, that's been the only local game. So it's a 3.5 hour drive. I'll just drive up there, see the game, grab dinner, and go home. But that's a really fun city. The fans there are fantastic. Otherwise, I do what I can when I'm traveling east to try to go through New Jersey when there's a home game. There have been a lot of times I've flown in, seen a game, and then continued on to where I'm going, or I've gone from Prudential Center straight to Newark Airport and flown home. So I do try to catch games when I can. Otherwise, if I can't see them in person, I just watch them all.
It's always interesting when I meet somebody new and talk about, their favorite team and whatnot. I'd love to know who your favorite Devil is, past and present.
I think it's hard not to just say that the favorite past Devil is Martin Brodeur, just what he did for the franchise. But if you look at the numbers that are on the rafters, all of them have a claim to that. You've got 3 Hall of Famers up there. I think Elias should be in the Hall of Fame, so give him a couple more years, and now it'll be 4. But Marty just did so much where all the other guys are great players, but Marty's the only one that I think you can just say is simply the best. So he was so much fun to watch for such a long time. And he was also the one that was playing really, in my youth. Stevens and Niedermeyer and Danico came a little bit earlier, and I saw them for a long time, but Marty lasted really from my being a kid into my being an adult, even past college. So he was just perfectly timed as such a legend. But right now, whether you want to say Heischer or Hughes or whoever it is, right? I just want to watch them and see what happens. I think we've got a lot of guys that are going to be with us long term. Which one's going to come out as the best of the bunch? Probably Jack, but you never know. There's so many promising players right now that it's too early to see what's the legacy that's going to stick.
Absolutely. Frank, is there anything else you want to ask Jeremy before we let him promote himself?
I guess if I had to ask you one more thing, because I was going to ask you this anyway, what is the greatest Devils moment you've ever witnessed in person? I know you've been a fan for a while.
If you go back to the 95-96 season, at the end of 95, so Boudreau he's just starting his legendary career.
Mm-hmm.
And you go to a game, all you want to see is Martin Brodeur play. The Devils play the Islanders, and Corey Schwab is in net. So my brother and I was 8 at the time, he was 11. We're kind of beside ourselves. We came to this Devils game, and Marty's not playing, and this is the worst thing that ever happened in our lives. Second period, there's a fight behind the net on the Islanders side, and Tommy Soderstrom, who's playing for the Islanders, did something. I don't remember what. It doesn't matter. But Corey Schwab saw red. He dropped all of his gear, bolted across the ice, and just started pummeling Tommy Soderstrom. So first, we got a goalie fight, and I'm there in person. Second, Schwab gets kicked out. Brodeur comes in and finishes the rest of the game. And then, if you want the postscript, so that was awesome. A couple of years ago, I was talking to someone at work, and he finds out I'm a hockey fan. He's like, "Who do you root for?" I said, "The Devils." "Oh, my kid's coach. He used to play for the Devils. His name's Corey Schwab." I'm like, "Well, let me tell you my story about Corey Schwab." So I tell him that. A couple days later, he comes back, and I've got a signed photo from Corey Schwab hoisting the cup.
Wow.
That's incredible. I really love that story. That's awesome. Frankie made me think of one more question I wanted to ask you. Before, or if the season were to end today, the Devils would play the Rangers in the first round. Obviously, a top 10 NHL rivalry in a lot of people's opinion. Is that something that makes you excited or something a little bit nervous? Like, can't lose in the first round to the Rangers.
I think it makes me excited because if you watch everyone who's new to the team in the last couple of years, and in the last couple of seasons where they haven't had a lot of success at all, let alone against New York. And this year they've had some really tight games, but good games. And you're watching these guys get fired up. I think they're starting to understand the importance that the fans that have been rooting for the Devils since before these players were even alive and know how much that rivalry means to us. And now they're seeing it and they're playing that way. I think it will fire them up. And obviously, nothing would be better than beating the Rangers in the playoffs or just in general. But if we have the chance to go and get that fired up, to start a playoff series and get all these guys to just know what they're playing for, I think it's a huge growth opportunity. As a fan, I think it'd be just super, super exciting hockey to watch. So bring it on.
Absolutely. I love that. Jeremy, we can't thank you enough for coming on our show. This has been an absolute pleasure and one of legitimately the most interesting interviews we've ever had on the show, because I'm like I said, Frankie brought up that story last week and I was like, I wonder if I can get him to come on the show. I just think that would be truly sensational. And it was everything I dreamed it would be. Like, you're incredibly smart. And, I would keep going with this stuff. I know you don't need me to tell you, but man, that stuff is really cool. I hope you have the opportunity to draw the Stanley Cup. I'm trying to think of like some of the hardest NHL logos to draw, like trying to draw a Blackhawks
logo.
Yeah, like that'd be
funny. My uncle said the exact same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in you.
I mean,
think
if they win
the
the draft
smartest
lottery and get Bedard, I think
yeah, like you're
Blackhawks logo would be pretty cool.
Clearly one of the smartest people we've ever had on this show. So I don't think anything's impossible with this guy. But I know before the show you told us you haven't been a Twitter guy and now you have somewhat of a following. So why don't you promote yourself and what might be coming up for you in terms of what you might be doing?
Sure. So my Twitter handle, as you see there, AirplaneNut312. I never really used Twitter before this, but now it seems like I'm obliged to do something. So I'm sure I'll find some stupid jokes to make with the Devils. Just a day or two ago, I suggested that they have a new retro jersey next year using my little
I saw
design.
that. Yep.
I think it's beautiful. Or if they want to make that a shirt or a warm-up jersey, the Devils play the Kraken in a couple weeks. I could see that going over very well. But I don't think anything particularly serious is going to come out there. But the more, as I think of new things to fly around and draw, I'm sure you'll see those pop up or other random thoughts. But probably won't become the biggest of the Devils accounts. I still have to figure out how Twitter works.
It's okay. I mean, I think you're doing a great job on your own. Just keep
Absolutely.
doing what you're doing, Jeremy. I'll try and help promote this jersey. I actually love that idea as a warm-up jersey. Let's make that happen. Let's start a movement, Jeremy.
Yeah, they've got a couple weeks to do it.
Yeah, oh
And
yeah.
I was even thinking if the Kraken want to fly me out with them first, I'll go and root for the Kraken against the Islanders because they play them first. And then I can go to the game in New Jersey.
Yeah, and then they're not going to get you to root
Thank
for
you.
the Kraken against the Devils, but
I said 80 games a year, and that's not one of them.
yeah, I get it. I totally get it. I feel that way about a couple teams. You know, I live in Chicago. The Blackhawks, yeah, go ahead and win when they're not playing the Devils. Like, that's fine. When you play the Devils, I hate you.
That's right.
Jeremy, we can't thank you enough again for coming on our show. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope everything going forward, stay safe in that cockpit. Do what you got to do to keep doing well and keep being you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank
Frank,
you, Jeremy.
I forgot to send it to period number 1 when we brought in Jeremy, so I will remember this time to send it to period number 2. Welcome to period 2, where we can't thank Jeremy Katz enough for coming on our show. Frank, I legitimately think that was the smartest person we've ever brought on our show.
Very intelligent man.
He made me and you, like, our intelligence combined doesn't even come to 25% of his intelligence.
Right. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. I'm glad he was here. I'm glad I was able to bring up that story last week. They ultimately got him on the show this week. So, like I said, he's a very intelligent man. I can't wait to see what's in the works. He said there's a few things on the DL that's in the works. And if the Devils end up winning the cup, a bigger more life-sized Stanley Cup may be drawn in the air. I should say will be drawn, but that'll be just so cool. Honestly, I can't wait to see what's to come. And like I said, if the Blackhawks win the draft lottery, me being a big Blackhawks fan over here, I'd love to see him do something related to Bedard or the Blackhawks. I think that'd be phenomenal.
All right, well, I'll see if he wants to come back on if the Devils win the Stanley Cup or if anything like that happens. You think drawing the Stanley Cup would be easier than the Devils logo? I kind of think it would.
Yeah, probably.
That little part where the cup connects to the actual base of the trophy is probably extremely difficult. I imagine there's a couple of those half-mile turns in there, like with the corners of the Devils logo. I just feel like that's the hardest part, and then there's a lot of straight shooting from there.
Well, the ridges in the Stanley Cup could be a little bit harder too, because see with the Devils logo, it's you got it's like one fluid motion almost, but with the Stanley Cup, you got like the indents of the rings. So you almost have to like backtrack to do the rings. So those ridges might be a little tough because like you just can't put a plane in reverse and back up and get that outline. So I don't know how that
Hand
works.
hand behind the chair, like beep,
Yeah.
beep.
I mean, I don't know how that works. I haven't flown a plane, but I assume something like that looks easy, but not as easy as it looks.
What's the closest you think you'll ever come to flying an airplane?
Riding an airplane.
Wow, I was gonna say like like one of those remote control airplanes that you could bring outside and like and
I
you
mean,
see it go flying.
being in an airplane, you're at least closer to the cockpit. So
That's true. That's true. Well, Jeremy, we can't thank you enough for coming on. It's been our pleasure. Frank, we got some puck to talk about.
we do.
Jonathan Ice Hockey returned to Calgary couple days ago to play the Calgary Flames, his first time as a member of the Columbus BJs. What do you got to say about it?
Normally when a guy makes his return to his city that he played for so long, it's like normally there's supposed to be a feeling there like, oh, I can't wait for that to happen. To me, that I overlooked this. It didn't occur to me until you told me, and it's like it really wasn't talked about much. But ultimately, his return to Calgary, 2 power play assists, great game. You know how guys play against their former teams; they really get their fire lit under the butt and get their game going, and that's what happened. He had 2 power play assists, but ultimately, Calgary won the game 4-3 in overtime. It was a close game, and with how bad Columbus has been playing, that's a bit of surprising there. But, Boudreau's numbers are down this year. He's having one of his worst years career stats-wise, but that's because, the Blue Jackets stink. They really don't have anybody to build around him right now, and they're not a team that can contend, and they're not a team that produces a lot of points and goals. And he's not even point per game right now. But I imagine that when the Blue Jackets are ready to win, and if he's still there at that time, I assume as with the team improves, he'll improve as well, and so will the guys around him.
I completely agree with that statement, actually. He's having a bad year. Like a lot of guys have bad first years with their new teams, like Dougie Hamilton last year with the Devils. Like that just happens sometimes. And then people start, stink, waste of money. And then freaking they have 100 points the following year, and people are like, wow, I can't believe I actually questioned why Johnny Gaudreau was having a down year. Like, I can't wait till he has 100 points
Right.
with the Blue Jackets next year.
It's
Even if
gonna
they
take
stink.
time.
Even if they stink, I think he has a chance to be like a point per game player next year, just because sometimes it's hard. New teammates, new coach, your center's Boone Jenner. Like, I mean, dude, give
Right.
me a break. Like, if they win the draft lottery and get Bedard of 120 points, no issue. Like, Johnny Gaudreau's a really good player. You can see the incredible skill that he has, even when it's not going in for him. He made the silkiest chef's kiss pass to Line in this game against Calgary, and Line freaking buried it. Well, Line hasn't been there a whole lot, like injuries and whatnot. He's making these passes to, like, goofballs, and they're not getting buried like they were in Calgary when he was playing with Kachuk and Lindholm and Mangiapane. And there's a reason both teams, both Gaudreau and the Flames, have taken a bit of a since he left, but they'll all get it figured out soon enough. I thought that game was one of the most electric factory games of the entire NHL season. I watched it from beginning to end. The Calgary Flames versus Columbus Blue Jackets game last week. It had everything. Hockey had 2 assists. Okay, he could have had 5. He was the decoy when Boone Jenner scored on a terrific shot. And I'm thinking, like, if this was a rookie or a second-year player, they would have tried to force an unnecessary pass that would have never got through to Gaudreau, who was the decoy on the play. Boone Jenner, such a veteran, missed some time this year. He scored his 13th of the season. Just absolute snipe for the Blue Jackets there, beating Dan Vladar, who's a pretty good backup goalie in the NHL these days. Gaudreau had a penalty shot. Most exciting play in hockey. All of our favorite teams get like 2 or 3 penalty shots an entire season, if that. And the headline player of the game had a penalty shot. He missed wide. He had the open glove side on Vladar wide open, and he just fired it way wide. And the crowd went bananas when Gaudreau missed against the Flames, but they were booing him the entire time. They booed him every single time he touched the puck. The only time they didn't boo him, it just goes to show how it's more of a show to boo him than anything. They played the video on the Jumbotron. Hey, thank you, Johnny, for everything you did the last 9 years. Yeah, woo! All the fans going bananas for this video, and then right back to booing him when he takes his next shift. It's just gamesmanship. It's just love for the game. I thought the entire night was awesome. I wrote about it for puckpros.com. It was honestly one of my favorite hockey games that didn't involve the Devils all season long.
And who doesn't love bonus hockey?
Oh my God. And then the play that Dubé made, or he had the OTGWJ, I forget who it was that passed it to Dubé. And it was just an incredible pass, and Dubé did not miss. He needed to make a perfect shot to beat Korpisalo in that game. He was playing outstanding, especially once they got the game tied. Both goalies were outstanding, and it was going to take a perfect shot like that or a greasy goal. And the Flames got it done in overtime. They spoiled Johnny's return, but I'll tell you what, 2 very interesting teams going kind of in different directions. The Flames,
Yeah.
they've been really good the last 2 weeks or so. And 2 weeks ago, I probably would have pooped on them, said I don't necessarily think they're going to make it. It wouldn't surprise me if Edmonton, Colorado, Minnesota, all these teams pass them. Now it's like they're starting to really get something going. Mangiapane hasn't been the same player that he was last year. He's only got 10 goals now. But he had 30 last year. He'll probably come up just short of 20, I would assume, this year if he keeps the pace. I don't know though. I think Calgary, they're fun, and the Blue Jackets, they're going to get a really good player in the draft.
Absolutely, completely 2 different opposite directions that they're going in. Hopefully, Blue Jackets don't get the number 1 pick, but nonetheless, they should get a top 3 pick regardless.
I hope they don't get a number 1 pick for a different reason than you do. You hope they don't get it because you want the Blackhawks to get it. I hope they don't get it because I don't need Connor Bedard in the Metropolitan Division. The Flyers have been playing so well that they've kind of taken themselves out of the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. And the Blue Jackets, that's the only team I don't want to get Bedard, even though I will say this. Let's take off our favorite team's hats for a minute. Ignore the Blackhawks. Ignore the Devils for a minute. Bedard on the Blue Jackets would be awesome. He'd be playing with Kent Johnson and, all those young studs that they have going on there. The Blue Jackets were wildly talked about in the World Junior Championships because they got some pretty good talent there. Like Bedard playing in that organization would be awesome from a hockey point of view. Just don't want him in the Metropolitan Division. I'll put my Devils hat back on now.
Fair enough.
Frank Stamkos scored his 500th career goal. Your thoughts?
I've always been a Stamkos fan, and we said it many times in the show. I'm pretty sure I might have told you the story before too. That back in the day when I was first getting into hockey and playing the NHL video games for the first time, when I didn't even own a console to buy NHL on, and I would go to like my buddy's house or play it at a cousin's house. The team I would always choose was the Tampa Bay Lightning because I was fascinated with the whole Lightning logo and everything. I would never choose the Blackhawks. I would always choose the Tampa Bay Lightning. And because of that, and that really never changed. I mean, over the years, I never usually choose the Blackhawks to play as in games that much. But over the years, it's like you play with the Lightning so much in the game, and you start to know the players and learn more about them. And Steven Stamkos, big part of the Lightning organization, gets 500th career goal via hat trick against the Canucks. Which he's only the third active player ever to do it, or not ever to do it. He's the third active player right now to have 500 career goals behind Crosby and Ovechkin. And it was very interesting and nice that he actually got videos from both guys, both Crosby and Ovechkin, and they say their kind words and like, oh, congratulations, and you're doing so well, stuff like that. They give them the nice words, and the Tampa Bay Lightning organization actually donated 500 meals to the Ronald McDonald House charity, which is a charity that Stamkos and his wife work very close with. So that was also a nice gesture from the Tampa Bay Lightning organization. But you think about Steven Stamkos and what he's done for the franchises. He's been a huge part of this franchise, the success. I mean, without Steven Stamkos, what kind of success would they have down the line? I mean, he's, to me at least, when I think of the Tampa Bay Lightning, I think of Steven Stamkos. I don't necessarily think of Nikita Kucherov or Andrei Vasilevsky or Victor Hedman. I don't think of those guys because of how tenured Stamkos is with this franchise and the impact he's made. And honestly, I would consider, and there's not a lot of like jerseys I would get in the NHL. Like, yeah, I would want a jersey of every team in the NHL. I think that'd be cool. But like, it's a realistic possibility that I would get a Stamkos jersey sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Stamkos is a legend. Like I honestly, 500 goals. I mean, who has five? Like handful of guys. Crosby and Ovechkin, the only active ones, right? Like McDavid will get there. Austin Matthews will get there. I believe Pasternak will get there. We'll see if Jack Hughes stays shooting the way he does, because I think that'll be like a determining factor on how many. Is he going to be more of a passer, 50-50 kind of guy? Stamkos was a 50-50 kind of guy through and through. 50 goals, 50 assists, or close to, one way or the other. He's legitimately one of the best players to put on a NHL uniform since he was drafted. And if it weren't for some injuries, he had the issue with the broken tibia a couple years ago and then a blood clot a year later. It was longer than a couple years ago now. But Stamkos reaching 500 goals and he's only like 32 or 33. He could have another 100, 200 in him and be like a 600, 700 goal guy. I don't know if he'll quite get 7, but I do think 6 is an absolute possibility. And then we're talking in like Jerome McGinley category. Like he's a first ballot Hall of Famer if he retires yesterday. And I just think he's super underrated at this point because nobody talks with the McDavids and the Matthews. Stammer's right there. He was a little cold there for a minute too when he was sitting on 499 or 498. He was on for a long time. Then he got 1. Then he got 500. Then scored 501 and 502 in the same game. And it's like, and guess what? Since then he scored again. He's got 503 now. So like, it was clear that
open.
Yeah, getting towards that milestone was a little tough on him, but that happens. I told you when Ovechkin's at 783, he's going to sit on it for a week or two. I do believe that. And, that stuff just kind of happens. It's like a mental thing. I don't know.
Like Aaron Judge when he was trying to get the
Exactly. And, you start gripping the stick a little tighter. Well, he finally got the one. It was a sick goal. I believe Alex Killorn made the good play to feed it to him and get the tap-in goal against Vancouver, who we're going to get to in a minute, in a very, very negative way. But yeah, Steven Stamkos, congrats to you. The Lightning honored him in their most recent home game against the Minnesota Wild. Awesome,
Yep.
awesome stuff.
Yeah, and I agree with you with how well this team is built and all the talented players on this team. He is a little underlooked and underrated because of guys like who I mentioned: Kucherov, Vasilevsky, Hedman, Point. There's so much talent on this team that because he's getting up there in age and you got so many amounts of young talent on this team, it's kind of getting overlooked now. But he's still a force to be reckoned with out there on the ice.
There's no doubt he's probably the 5th best player on the Lightning now, which is why they've won 2 of the last 3 cups, been to 3 straight. The 3-time Eastern Conference champion, because your Stamkos is your 5th best player when he'd be 28 teams' first best player.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if Braden Point's a Hall of Famer, but like at this point in time, I'd probably would take him over Stamkos. Hedman, Kucherov, and Vasilevsky, Hall of Famers. Like, I mean, legitimately outstanding, and the Lightning are going to be a force to be reckoned with again in the postseason. Winner of Leafs Lightning in the first round against the Bruins in the second round, going to be a bout for sure. Frank, Timo Meier, you touched on it with our guest Jeremy Katz earlier. He's on the trade block. San Jose Sharks are probably going to move him. I assume they're going to move anybody who's on an expiring contract, possibly even people who aren't on an expiring contract, like Erik Karlsson or Logan Couture. But, we'll see what happens. Timo Meier, though, there's lots of suitors for him. He's a 30 to 40 goal scoring machine these days. He's in the prime of his career. There's a little bit of risk of him not re-signing with whoever acquires him. So it depends on how much will a team be willing to give up. But the teams I've heard in the conversation for Timo Meier, obviously the New Jersey Devils, the New York Rangers, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Colorado Avalanche, all sorts of different teams in on Timo Meier. What do you think?
The biggest noise I've heard is coming from the New Jersey Devils. That they seem to be the front runner, and you can understand why. Obviously, young core, Stanley Cup contenders. They could use a guy like Timo Meier, and they have everything to give up for him because they're going to expect a first rounder probably and a prospect for sure. Those are the 2 things. I guarantee the first rounder and a prospect. You look at some of their prospects, got Alexander Holtz, Sharon Govich, Zetterlund. I heard rumblings about maybe potentially even moving Nemec, which I don't agree with. That doesn't make sense to me. But to me, Nemec would be off the table, and then there's one other guy
Luke Hughes.
Luke Hughes, obviously off the table as well. But the other guys I named, Holtz, Sharon Govich, Zetterlund, those are all possibilities that if the Devils were to trade for Timo Meier, they would be in that package potentially. Not all of them, but you throw in a first round in there too. But he's also due for a payday too. He makes $6 million right now, average per year. But I think technically he's making 10 million, but that's because like bonuses and everything. But it's hitting the cap at 6 million. That's going to change though. He's due for a pay increase. Me personally, I'd 8 million, maybe a little more, 8.5, maybe pushing 9. It all depends. Very young guy. He could come to the Devils and this young core who are ready to win, and he can make a difference for them. And from everything I've heard, it seems like the Devils are the favorite right now. I've heard very little on the Devil or on the Rangers, but the other teams you mentioned, I've heard nothing at all in regards to that.
I think the fact that he is only a $6 million cap hit does put teams like the Leafs and the Avalanche in play. Obviously, the Devils, they have their first round pick. It's already come out, and Pagnota of the fourth period reported that the Sharks are not planning on getting what the Blackhawks got for DeBrincat. So like that lowers the trade value a little bit too. And so I do think like Nemec or Hughes, they're not trading Luke Hughes for obvious reasons.
No.
If they were to trade Nemec, I would assume they get like a Bo Horvat or, someone who is just even a touch better than Timo Meier. I really don't. Nemec goes in like a super blockbuster. That's not going to be the case for a rental like Timo Meier. I do agree. First round, Alexander Holtz, Jesper Boquist, Fabian Zetterlund. Those are the kind of guys who I do think go back to San Jose in exchange for Meier. He's also Swiss, and he was Nico's line mate at the World Championships last year, and they made sick hockey love together. I mean, I'm talking like every time there was a 2-on-1, they scored. Nico and Meyer. One, it doesn't matter too because they both can pass, they can both shoot. I do think they'd play together at even strength with the Devils, or they could put Meyer with Hughes because why not put a sniper like that with him and keep Bratt with Heischer? Like there are so many
Seriously,
different combinations that would make sense for Meyer with the Devils, and I do think it's a match made in heaven. And the Sharks and Devils have made trades with one another in the past. I hope it happens. You talked about the money. Jack Hughes makes 8.5 now, and Heischer's in the 7s. Doug Hamilton is in the 9s. He's a defenseman, big time free agent signing. I could see the Devils giving him $1 million more than maybe what he's get on the market, like just to keep him, because I think he is that good and worth maybe a $500,000 overpay if need be. Do you pay him more than you're paying Jack? Yeah, actually, because everybody recognizes that you got Jack for cheap. He hit the free agent market tomorrow. He gets 12. So like you got Jack on a cheap. There were players that made more than Crosby who came to the Penguins. You had Crosby for cheap for so long, $8.7 million. That was Crosby's decision to sign that contract all those years ago. That doesn't mean you can't pay Evgeny Malkin more when his contract extension comes up. Okay, I think they did pay Marc-Andre Fleury a little bit more for the time being. Christopher Letang, Kunitz, or Dupuis, those guys never made more than Sid, but they were never worth $9 million. Like, someone would have made more than Sid had their contract come up just because Sid was signed. The only team that kind of has been like a subscription for is the Bruins, who got Bergeron and Marchand on like the cheapest deals ever. McAvoy makes 9 now. So like, how are they going to extend Pasternak? I think that's a conversation for a different episode because I think Pasternak gets 12 or 13 on the open market, but like, does he take 10 with the Bruins? Like that would really annoy a lot of people. But I honestly do think that's going to be the case. I do think Pasternak gets 8 for 88 or something like that. 10 mil cap hit, like, and the Bruins just keep it rolling. That's very possible, but we'll see what happens with a guy like Timo Meier. I'm very excited to see what becomes of him. We have just over a month until the trade deadline.
Yep.
Frank. No one circles the wagon like the Buffalo Sabres. Buffalo's good, man. I don't care what you say. I don't care what Joey says. I don't care what any of you clowns think. This team is damn good. Are they going to make it to the playoffs? I don't know. There's 4 or 5 teams battling for those 2 wild card spots there. I honestly do think it's just going to come down to 4 teams for the 1 spot because I do think Washington is probably going to make it now. I'm kind of like in on Washington, especially if Backstrom and Oshie get back healthy like I think they're going to. Well, Backstrom's back. Non-COVID illness yesterday, but they're a relatively healthy team. That last wild card spot though, Buffalo is not out of it.
Listen, we've talked about how Buffalo could score 8 goals and give up 8 goals per game, right? And I can't wait to share some of these stats with you because
Insane.
it boggles my mind.
It's freaking weird, man.
But anyway, they've won 4 in a row, including 2 back-to-back wins on the road, big wins in Dallas and in St. Louis. Those are 2 big wins right there for the Buffalo Sabres. They're now 3 points out with 3 games in hand on Washington, which leads me to believe like Washington, red flags. They're in deep, deep trouble. And we kind of figured
Pittsburgh?
Way more than Pittsburgh, I think. Because Pittsburgh they don't have any games in hand on Pittsburgh. They have the same amount of games played. And Washington's had those 3 extra games played. They've already played 50 games. I think they're the one in trouble now. And I think Pittsburgh's more on the safe side, to be honest with you.
All right.
And, coming into the season, I said I'm not high on Pittsburgh. And I really wasn't that high on Washington either because they started out the season with some injuries.
Fair.
And I knew it would be kind of hard for them to get things going. And once you fall into that hole, it's hard to get out of. But, they're the most top-heavy team. Not top-heavy, the most evenly distributed team, like from their top guys. So right now, they have 4 players with at least 20 goals. I couldn't find another team like that where they had at least 4 players with at least 20 goals.
Who?
The Buffalo Sabres.
Oh, I got one. There's one other.
Because I was checking. What would name them?
Edmonton.
Okay, I don't think I looked at
McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, and Nugent Hopkins.
Because I was looking at
20.
Boston. I was looking at New Jersey. I was looking at Tampa
the Devils
Bay.
only have 2.
I know. And
they will have 4.
I was looking at all these teams. I'm like, the Buffalo Sabres, man.
Yep. It's
And
the
even after
Sabres.
that, Dylan Cousins is having his best season yet. He has 17 goals. So
Yep.
it's like he's right on the brink of becoming the 5th player to get 20 goals for this team. They've been absolutely cooking. But to go back to what I was saying before about how when they score goals in bunches and it's great, whenever they give up, so if they don't decide to give up a lot of goals some games and they're only going to give up a few goals, if they give up 3 goals or less, their last 5 games they've given up 3 goals or less, they're 5-0. When they've given up more than 3 goals, the last 5 times they've given up more than 3 goals, they're 0-4-1, which is just insane. It's like you're either going to score a bunch of goals and win the game, or you're just going to give up a bunch of goals and lose the game. And I know that sounds silly. That's how hockey works, but it's like, come on now. Like, make up your mind. Are you going to score 8 goals or give up 8 goals? Or why can't you just be consistent? But I mean, to me, it's this team is getting hot at the right time.
Tage Thompson is in the Hart Trophy conversation. I think McDavid.
33 goals.
You could start sketching McDavid's name on the Hart Trophy right now, but Thompson's going to get nominated.
Yeah, but he won't win it.
No, he's going. I think he's going to get nominated.
He might.
And possibly even come in second. He is, the biggest unicorn in the NHL right now. He's 6'6", and he plays like Jack Hughes, who's 5'10". I mean, that play he made to give the Buffalo Sabres the overtime win a couple nights ago was unlike anything I've ever seen before, because he's this guy who towers over everyone, making finesse speed plays like that. Like Jamie Benn and Ryan Getzlaf were that big. They never moved around like Tage Thompson does. They just didn't. Taves never moved around the way Patrick Kane did. There's a difference. When you're big, you're normally slower and more bulky. Tage Thompson is huge, and he acts like a small boy. And there is somewhat of an explanation for their extreme goal giving up goals. Every now and then their goalies play bad. I mean, they got Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, they got Craig Anderson. There's another big one I'm missing. They kind of rotate goalies a little bit. Their defense is very young. Okay, Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power, these guys are going to be generational. Not generational, I hate that word. Only 2 players are generational in the NHL right now, and both of their last names start with M. Super elite franchise defensemen, Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power, 2 number 1 overall picks. They're young though. And the last thing to come to your game when you become an NHL player is the defensive side of things. Everybody creates offense when they first come in the league. Well, when do teams start winning Stanley Cups, like Pittsburgh, like Chicago, like Washington? When their stars commit to defense a little bit more in addition to playing offense. That'll come in time with Buffalo. I really, really believe so. Dahlin and Owen Power, they'll be in Norris Trophy conversations at the end of their career, and potentially offensive gurus. Owen Power scored his first goal of the year. I think he's going to be more of like a dish, pass and defense type of defenseman, much like a Duncan Keith. Maybe not as good as Duncan Keith, but that style. Keith never really had more than like 5. Seabrook always scored more goals, but Duncan Keith have 60 assists. Like I could see Owen Power being on the cusp of something like that, where Dahlin will score 20 goals. But I don't know. I just really like this Buffalo team. They're a team I hope gets in the playoffs. The Penguins, Washington, yeah, they're some of my favorite teams to watch. I love Crosby. I love Ovechkin. I really, really do. I wish there was a way for them all to get in and like get the Rangers out of here or something. But like Buffalo in a playoff series playing as loose as they would, I'll tell you what, the Boston Bruins, if they break the NHL point record, wouldn't want to be playing Buffalo in the first round. They'd rather play Pittsburgh or Washington. I promise you that.
Well, of course.
Promise you that.
Now, do you think that because there are so many other players on the Buffalo Sabres who are scoring goals at will, like I said, Tuck 23 goals, Olofsson 22 goals, Skinner 20 goals, does that kind of hurt Thompson's chance of winning the Hart? Because is he really the most valuable to his team if there's a whole bunch of other guys that are chipping in as well? Whereas, like, if you remove like McDavid, that's a big part of the Edmonton Oilers game.
Yeah, or Hughes.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so,
no.
like, does that kind of hurt Thompson's chances?
I don't think so, because outside of Taylor Hall, When's the last time the Hart Trophy went to the most valuable player to his team? It just always goes to like
Right.
whoever leads the score in scoring by a bunch. McDavid, the second leading scorer in the NHL, is also on McDavid's team. So if
Right.
you're going to tell me that Olafson and Skinner and Tuck and Power and Dahlin and Cousins, all these guys are going to make it harder for Thompson, then I want to talk about how McDavid is the only other player in the league who has 3 other 20-goal scorers on his team, because Draisaitl, Hyman, and Nugent Hopkins all have 20 or more goals as well. So the Taylor Hall most valuable player to his team season, it's a nice thought. Jack Hughes and Tage Thompson and Pasternak, they're in the Hart Trophy conversation because of the fact that they lead their team like that, but they're also all top 10 in NHL scoring.
Fair.
Tage Thompson's a dog.
I was wrong.
You never said he was a bad player, though.
No,
You
I
didn't
just didn't
trust
think
one
he was worth the
season.
contract that quickly, just because of the ups and downs we saw. And he had the one good year, and I'm like, we're just basing it off the 1 year. That's a little scary. I just
And
thought the contract was a little messed up. I really never bashed him.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and I understand. I always understood what you were saying. I didn't agree with it, but I always understood what you were saying. The only advice I could give going forward, and listen, I in no way think I'm the end all be all giving advice and shit. Otherwise, my DraftKings account would have millions and millions of dollars in it. But like, I do believe in pedigree. Tage Thompson, first round pick, all of a sudden has this like crazy season, like he reached his potential. Then he gets the contract. Why? Well, because he was a first round pick. He's a super skilled player. Everybody, all the scouts from the day he was 17 years old thought he could get to this, and now he has. So let's pay him instead of
Right.
letting him go somewhere else. When a guy like Jesper Bratt starts doing this stuff, he didn't have the pedigree that Tage Thompson did coming out of junior or the Swedish Elite League, stuff like that. That's why Jesper Bratt hasn't been paid yet. He's got to do it 2, 3, 4 years in a row before anybody has some kind of confidence in him in the long term. That's the difference between somebody like Bratt and Thompson. I'm trying to think of other good examples around.
And that's why I'm trying to give, Shane Wright the benefit of the doubt too, because of how bad he's been lately. But I'm not out on Shane Wright, so I'm kind of like using my mistake that I made on Tage Thompson, and I'm using it going forward with different players that we see not excelling so well. But
don't be surprised if Seattle and Vancouver make one of the bigger in-division rivals trades in the history of the league before
I
the
think
trade
Shane
deadline.
Wright's going to Vancouver.
Wouldn't Bo Horvat just look so good on Seattle right now?
And the way Seattle's been playing,
they're a cup contender. I mean,
right.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're the first team. Dude, look at Vegas. Teams, when they finally are playing this good, believe them. When it's January 25th, when a team tells you what they are by January 25th, believe them. It's what I'm telling you. And there'll be busts in the playoffs. Like someone's going to lose in the first round. Like, wow, I didn't actually think they'd do that. But Seattle, if they had Bo Horvat right now down the middle, and you're running Beniers Horvat as your 1-2 punch in the postseason,
that would be good.
Seattle doesn't have a point per game player. It's all by committee. You add a stud muffin like Bo Horvat to the mix. Yeah, sign me up for a trade like that. And then Shane Wright can grow up in Vancouver with, some of those other young mates that are there. Probably a good idea for everyone, but we'll see if something like that happens. Speaking of Vancouver, they're kind of the team that's been in the news the most over the last couple weeks. Frank, Kevin Weeks reported that Vancouver was going to fire Bruce Boudreau like 3 weeks ago, and they're going to replace him with Rick Tocchet. Well,
yeah, we knew this was coming.
What do you know about Rick Tocchet and Kevin Weeks? They both work in NHL media together. Tockett's with TNT. Weeks with TNT as well, or is he? Weeks is ESPN.
Yeah,
Weeks
ESPN.
is with ESPN and the NHL Network. They're all boys. They're all at the rink at the same time. TNT's got this game. They're shipping out of town. They're in Toronto together tonight for Rangers Maple Leafs. I mean, it's one big party. Those NHL media guys.
Right.
And when Kevin Weeks says something, it's true. There's a reason he doesn't break like the big news, because really all the stuff he hears is like from his friends in the media game. So when he says Rick Tocchet's going to be the manager or the coach of Vancouver, believe him, because he heard it straight from Rick Tocchet. And I just couldn't believe that the Vancouver Canucks let Bruce Boudreau just sit on ice for 3 weeks like that and just treat him with such disrespect and allow him to sit there sinking in his own sand as the Vancouver Canucks just lose games, and he doesn't have to care because he's getting canned any day now. And finally they pulled the trigger after that one really hard game on, I believe it was Sunday night, and they look like a shit show. One of the best dressed teams in the NHL. I think perfect jersey catalog. I'm not saying they have any of the best jerseys in the NHL. In my opinion, the Red Wings and the Blackhawks have the two best jerseys in the NHL. But in terms of home, away, alternate two, reverse retro, nobody competes with Vancouver. I really only like Detroit and Blackhawks home jerseys. I actually think the road jerseys are kind of ugly and could use an improvement. Like Vancouver, everything is awesome. So I hate seeing them stink like this. Just a little side note. But Frank, what's your take on the Bruce Boudreau stuff?
See, I like Bruce Boudreau a lot.
Me too.
And we knew last week, I mentioned it too on the podcast last week, that Rick Tockett's going to be in. So it's like this was not hush hush by the organization, and they apologized. What's his name? Who's the owner or the general manager?
Oh, the general manager
Jim
is
something?
Mr. Rutherford, Jim Rutherford.
Jim Rutherford,
who was with Pittsburgh when Rick
Right.
Tocchet was there as the coach of the Wilkes-Barre Grand Penguins and the assistant coach.
and he apologized for the way it went down because like everything wasn't hush hush. And when you look at Bruce Boudreau when he's coaching, he looks like the biggest asshole out there. He's just
kinda
just
does.
sits there. He's got like no personality on his face. But when you get to know the guy and you get to talk to the guy, he's one of the most genuine, kind-hearted people there are. Big WWE guy. He loves Kevin Owens too. And yeah, he does. And like, he's just a man who just loves his job and just loves to coach and just he loves the game of hockey. And I really appreciate that about him too, because when they got destroyed by Vancouver, or not Vancouver, by Edmonton, his last game that he coached, he knew it was coming. He took it in, the crowd was chanting, "Bruce, there it is. Bruce, there it is." And which made it like the crowd knew it was coming too, because they knew, wow, this is probably going to be Bruce's last game coaching us. He was standing there on the bench, and after a loss, normally the coach goes right into the dressing room and, thinks about the next game, but this was different. After a loss, he stood there on the bench and kind of, looked at the crowd and took it all in one last time because he knew what was coming. It's absolutely horrible. It was handled poorly. I feel bad for him because I know he's a great guy. He's got a kind heart. You look at his record he had with Vancouver. It's not beautiful by any means. He was 50, 40, and 13, which isn't bad. I mean, it's fine. Obviously, you got some talented players on the Canucks, and you want to be a little bit better. Rick Tocchet comes in. He's 1-0 now, thanks to the Blackhawks. But I felt bad for Bruce Boudreau. I really did.
I did too. And Vancouver, they looked awesome yesterday.
Yeah.
The fact that they almost lost is kind of weird. They outshot them 2-1.
I know.
And it was close, or was it 3-1? They outshot them.
It was like 2.5.
Frank, 48-14. That's bad. That's bad.
I thought it was like 2.5 to
the
1.
Devils get 14 shots a period.
They look bad, the Blackhawks.
They were terrible. In Vancouver, the fact that they only scored 4 goals plus an ENG, right? The fifth
fifth one was an empty netter.
Yeah, it was Bo Horvath throwing one into the empty netter, his 31st of the season. Yep. Get him to the Kraken. That was a terrible game for the Hawks, but Vancouver finally put together a good effort, and I thought Quinn Hughes looked really good. I watched almost the whole game, missed a little bit of the first period, but I caught it during the meat and potatoes of the game and thought it was an interesting game. I'm happy they were able to get the win. I'm not happy for the people in charge. And Mr. Rutherford and Tocchet have a relationship from their days with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Rutherford put together 2 Stanley Cup champions with Pittsburgh. The Crosby, Malkin, Kessel days were Mr. Rutherford's doing, and Tocchet was a part of that. And so he's telling his boy, like, you're the coach.
Right.
And then Tocchet says it to Weeksy. He breaks it. They wait 3 weeks to disgusting way to manage your business.
The feeling he had to have too, Boudreau.
Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Like, just, all right, when is it going to happen? Just do it.
The way the Vancouver Canucks handled this, they should be ashamed of themselves. They don't deserve anything Bedard is from Vancouver. I don't care. I don't care. That's disgusting. That's Bush League. That's not how you handle one of the greatest coaches in the history of the National Hockey League. And this cannot be the way that Bruce goes out. I hope someone, anyone, one of the cup contenders, the Devils, the Bruins, the Rangers, someone, make him an assistant to the donut vendor or something where he can be a part of an organization to go out in a much more proper way than what Vancouver did in disgusting fashion. I hope the Devils get Quinn Hughes out of there and then figure it out from there, Vancouver. I want to root against Vancouver. I like Vancouver. I have no issue. Blackhawks fans really don't like Vancouver
Yeah, I'm
from
not
the
a
old
Vancouver
playoff
fan.
days. But like their reverse retro is my favorite. It's still the background on my phone. And I love their black jerseys, the skates. So cool. I mean, I'm obsessed with Vancouver's jerseys. I want every single one of them. Home away alternate, though the one with the stick. Oh, so cool. They are just unbelievably cool, well-dressed organization. They don't handle the Bruce Boudreau thing correctly. I'm disgusted by it. I hope they lose every game. No, I hope they win every game the rest of the season and miss the playoffs by 1 point and have no chance at Bedard.
So
Frank.
you didn't know that Bruce Boudreau was like a big Kevin Owens guy?
No clue. Had no clue.
So at the draft, I think it was at this last year's draft, he was sitting like on a panel, like discussing the draft picks with another colleague, and Kevin Owens surprised him and showed up. And Bruce Boudreau's smile on his face lit up like he was a little kid going to a wrestling event. And it was hilarious. Bruce Boudreau's like, "So Kevin, when are you going to be returning? Are you going to be a so-and-so returning next week?" And Kevin Owens like, "Yeah, I'm trying to work out the injury right now." It was like, it was almost like so cute to see Bruce Boudreau like fanboy over Kevin Owens like a little kid would. And it was just, it was actually really funny. If you haven't seen it, I'm surprised because you watched the draft.
Yeah, I'm actually going to have to go back and watch it. I love Bruce Boudreau. He was the coach of the
And
Wild
it
for a
was,
long time. Some of my favorite Zach Parise years involved Bruce Boudreau. He was Ovechkin's coach for a long time. Loved him in Anaheim. I mean, I'm a huge Bruce Boudreau guy. Every team he's gone to, I was like kind of attracted to a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I loved watching Anaheim in the Getzlaff, Perry, Boudreau days. I loved watching Washington when he had Nicholas Backstrom and Alexander Ovechkin in their true prime. Obviously, what went on in Vancouver, over 500 in Vancouver. No one would have ever thunk that, but he was over 500 in Vancouver. Like, great coach, outstanding. Loved him with the Wild. I hope he gets one more chance to do something. My favorite Bruce Boudreau story is actually, it's not really my favorite. I don't want to call it my favorite story, but he was supposed to be on one of the 9/11 flights. If you haven't seen, if you want the hairs on your arms to stand up, go to NHL.com and type in Bruce Boudreau 9/11 and read that story about how something pulled him away from getting on that flight, and he would have been on there. And that would have been in 2001. Like he probably wasn't even with Washington. I don't know what his career was before Washington, to be honest with
get
you.
Bruce
So,
on the show.
you want me to? I'll try.
That'd be sick.
Yeah, that would be sick. But yeah, Frank, moving on. Max Pacioretty, Josh Norris, both out for the year. Sucks. Hate it. Wish they were able to play. Both great players in different points of their career. What do you got?
Yeah, it's rough. First of all, Max Pacioretty. I love Max Pacioretty. I got a jersey of his from when he was on the Canadiens. It's a big loss for the Carolina Hurricanes. He tore the same Achilles that he did last year, that he did this year too. So the one that he tore this year, he tore last year, and the one that he needed surgery to fix the torn Achilles from last year. So now it's just like you're going down a path that's like really scary as an athlete because you don't want to keep injuring the same injury over and over again because then it tends to shorten your career. But when he made his debuts with the Hurricanes a couple weeks ago, he had 3 goals in 5 games. He could be a key part of the Carolina Hurricanes organization. So I know how much he means to this team, and him going down is just a huge loss, especially because right now they're battling with the Devils for first in the Metro, and losing Pacioretty hurts the Hurricanes tremendously, and that helps the Devils out because it makes it, a little bit easier on the Devils. So that's tough. That's a tough loss to go out with. As far as Josh Norris goes, Josh Norris, the Ottawa Senators are having an off year, right? They're not having. I thought they could be a bubble team, but then with Cam Talbot going out for so many weeks, I'm like, well, it's going to make it a little bit harder on them. You got DeBrincat and Giroux and stuff like that. And now that Josh Norris goes down, it makes it a little bit tougher for them. Obviously, they weren't going to go anywhere this year, but he's a huge loss too. Even though obviously they're not doing anything this year, it's still a huge loss to the team.
Yeah, and it's just a lost year of development for him. Like he's a really good
Exactly.
player. I think he has a chance to be.
Which didn't he go out with? It's dealing with his shoulder.
Yeah,
And that's another thing. He missed what, like 38 games last year, or was it this year, with the same shoulder injury?
yeah.
But he also injured the shoulder last year, kind of like with the Achilles with Max Pacioretty. It's like that's really bad if you're an athlete, because you don't want to keep injuring that same part of your body, because it's going to shorten your career. And like you said, it's going to hurt his developmental into the NHL, and that's really bad for him.
Yeah, I agree. I hope he's able to work it out. He has a better chance of coming back than Pacioretty, I would assume, just based on age and the injuries slightly. You could get
Yeah.
the shoulder figured out. The Achilles, that's going to be. Do you know what the Achilles is? Like,
Oh,
don't
I
even
know.
Google what the injury. It's disgusting.
It's gruesome.
Joey described it to me like, those things that you would like. They were like a long strip, and you would hit them on your wrist, and they would like lock to your wrist.
Yeah.
That's what your Achilles is like. Apparently, like I didn't know that. Ugh, no, thank you. Please,
Yep.
I hope Max Pacioretty's okay.
And Josh Norris is a 50-point scorer.
Yep.
You're missing an extra 50 points on your team.
Yep.
So
hopefully,
rough.
hopefully the decision was because of where Ottawa is in the standings, and they could have had him back for playoffs if necessary. Which, if they were that type of team, hopefully that's the case. I don't know it to be for sure, but we will see what happens. Frank, the All-Star Game rosters became final between our last show and now. Each team added 2 skaters and a goalie. What do you make of the selections? I'm sure you have them in front
I
of you.
got them all written down. Yep. I don't have the full rosters. I just have the voting.
We don't need the full rosters.
Yeah.
We already went
We
over
did
that
last week.
Yeah.
Well, we'll look at the Central. Not too surprising there, Nathan McKinnon. Obviously, you want to have him at the All-Star game. Hellebuck's been playing out of his mind for the Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets look rejuvenated, like they're a new team. Like where were they last year? Why weren't they doing this last year? And then Mikko Rantanen, obviously McKinnon's teammate. I mean, I think that's a very good voted in Central group, in my opinion. You got some pretty interesting names that are going to make the All-Star game a little bit better. From the Pacific Division, Leon Draisaitl. Obviously, how do you not have Leon Draisaitl? But obviously, if you have one per team, you're going to have Connor McDavid over Leon Draisaitl. Not surprised Draisaitl was voted in. Bo Horvat, we talk about how much of a stud he is. He deserves to be there. He's voted in. And one of our names, who we mentioned last week on who we potentially think could be voted in, was Skinner, the goalie for the Edmonton Oilers. So how about that? He ended up getting in. Like we said, he was playing out of his, like, I think last week we gave our 2 picks, right, on who we thought and a goalie who would be in. Skinner, I think, was your choice. I forgot who was mine, but I put him as a mention too, so he's in there. Atlantic Division, Austin Matthews, not surprised. David Pastrnak, not surprised. Andrei Vasilevsky, not surprised. I think we mentioned all 3 of those guys last week as well. So there's really not much to say there. All 3 are having phenomenal years and deserve to be there. Then you look over to the final division, the Metropolitan Division. Artemi Panarin, Adam Fox, and Ilya Sorokin. Once again, not much to say there. Artemi Panarin is just a guy who's going to make the All-Star game a lot more fun. He brings a lot of different aspects to the team. And if you want a guy who has a lot of skill, you get that with Artemi Panarin. Got a great defenseman in Adam Fox. He's having a pretty good year. He's also a guy that deserves to be there. And Sorokin, I know you're a big Islanders fan. You talk about how well the Islanders are playing, and I'm sure you're happy about Ilya Sorokin being there. So what's your take on it?
Yeah, I'm happy the Islanders started losing, though, because it gave the Devils a little bit more of a cushion in their playoff spot. But I would love to have a conversation with Mr. Bettman, that weasel, according to John Scott on our show last week.
What happened?
I don't even slightly believe that this was a fan vote.
It doesn't seem like it, because he said vote in anyone, and I mean anyone. That was like their slogan. And this is like
the list of the players who should make it.
There's no shocks here. And I don't know.
Keandre Miller got more Twitter votes than Adam Fox.
That's what I'm saying. I saw that too. It's like
I just don't at all believe that it was a fan vote. You're telling me one division wouldn't have had a joke? Not even, it doesn't have to necessarily even be a joke. Like, think when Zemgus Girgensons made it.
Mm-hmm.
He was voted in. He had Latvia and Buffalo voting for him.
Yeah.
Zemgus Gerzensen's was a joke, but he was still a good player. Like, you can have good players make it on like a jokes. Like, John Scott's an outlier, like a
Right.
fourth line goon that only fights. There wasn't one.
Yeah, that doesn't
I
make
honestly
sense.
don't think anyone was snubbed.
No, because
You
all these
cannot.
guys deserve to be there.
Yeah, okay, that's a great way to put it. They all deserve. Like, you can argue you'd rather have Heischer make it than Panarin, or Bratt make it than Panarin, or Nietzsche's from the Hurricanes, Konechny from the Flyers. There are a couple people you can argue,
Yeah.
but like Panarin deserves to. He's Artemi Panarin. He's
Right.
the bread man. He's everything that's come with Panarin over the years. Like, I just don't for 1 second. You're telling like, how
I
did we
agree.
nail the Atlantic Division? 1, 2, 3. Pasternak. Was it
Matthews
Matthews?
and Vasilevsky. That was like
Who else
Chalk.
would go?
We did Chalk, right?
Like, if 2 Leafs made it because Toronto's bigger than everyone else in the hockey world, like, that wouldn't shock me. Austin Matthews didn't make it because he's from the Maple Leafs. He could have been from the Coyotes, and he would have made it based on what I'm seeing here. Like, I honestly believe there was something fishy here. I truly do. I normally don't believe in conspiracy theories or anything. Conspiracy theory people piss me the H off. This is my one conspiracy theory. I in no way believe that this was strictly a fan vote. I think there was probably a group of players near the top of the fan vote, and they selected from them based on what was deserved on their production this season. Like, there's no way that
A lot of people think that.
Jesper Bratt had more votes than all of the Rangers. I saw it. Heischer was third. Like, that wouldn't have made it because top 2, but like, holy crap. I just don't believe it.
And you're not the only one. A lot of people believe it as well, that it was somewhat rigged. And if that's the case, if it was like that, don't even put the vote out. Like, just make the decision yourself. Don't even hold the vote, because you're going to get backlash for it. Or if it was rigged, you got to throw in like one anyway, right? To make sure like people don't start questioning it. But
I thought for sure 88 would make it.
I
He's
did
not
too.
having an all-star year. He's not. He scored yesterday. He's going to command something on the trade deadline. If someone offers up something, the Hawks are going to get something for him. I do believe that. I believe Bedard has a better chance of being on the Blackhawks next year than Patrick Kane does. But, I mean, Chicago owns these votes. When the White Sox and the Cubs were each part of the last man in for baseball, Chris Sale and Anthony Rizzo were voted in. Chicago's second team gets more votes than other teams in the MLB. Like, Chicago owns the year they had the vote for the starting lineup. It was Taves, Kane, Keith, Seabrook, and Crawford. Like, what are we doing? Like, you're not fooling. Like, Patrick Kane would be voted. Like, I just don't for 1 second believe that it was strictly a fan vote. No shot.
It does. Yeah, I agree. It doesn't make sense to me. Something's fishy. Just like Foster says, too many things too fishy these days.
Too many things, Foster. How you doing? Welcome to the chat. Good to have you. Frank, I ask you this every week. What's your favorite hockey story of the week?
Well, one of my favorite things in hockey is coming up, and that's the NHL skills competition.
Ooh.
And this year, I am happy to say that there are going to be 3 brand new events included in the skills competition. And I'm happy that they're embracing the location of the All-Star game and incorporating new events just like they did in Vegas last year, because that wasn't always the case. They wouldn't always just make up these new events based on the location they're at. But I like that more nowadays they're doing that. And this year being in South Florida, we got some interesting events this year. And I'm going to explain each one of them to you. We got Splash Shot, Pitch and Puck, and Tendy Tandem. So what Splash Shot is it's just described as it's going to be located on the beach in Fort Lauderdale. And it'll consist of 8 players, 2 teams of 4. Players must hit all the targets before attempting to dunk their opponent, and I assume meaning dunk their opponent into the ocean or on the beach in Fort Lauderdale, which will be really cool. It'll kind of be like what they did with the Vegas fountains, except they'll be out on a beach now, in Fort Lauderdale. So I think that'll be really cool. What I kind of picture is some like dunk tank type of vibes, like hitting targets, and then like so you could dunk your opponent, whoever's in the tank. That's what I'm picturing. But that's Splash Shot. Then you got Pitch and Puck, which Vin, I know you'll be excited about this. It combines hockey and golf, where it'll consist of 6 players on a 4-par golf hole, and the winner is whoever could put the ball or puck into the hole in the least amount of strokes, just like golf. So I think that'll be pretty cool. If there's a tie, it goes to the longest drive. They'll determine it using the longest drive. I just think that's funny because a lot of hockey players in the offseason, they go in golf. Um, a lot of older folks who travel to Florida, retire in Florida, like to golf. They're just embracing the whole Florida thing, having golfing and hockey come together. I think that's going to be really cool. I don't know how many of the hockey fans will appreciate it because I know there'll be a lot of the people saying that's not hockey. What skills involved when we're playing golf? And I know there'll be some backlash there, but I think it's going to be so cool. The All-Star game, the skills competition is meant to be fun, and that's what it's going to be. It's going to be fun. I don't care what other people think. I care about what my entertainment is during the game, and I know I'm going to be entertained.
I love that. Go ahead.
Oh, I got one more. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say I love that.
The third and final new competition, Tendy Tandem. This is really cool. I don't have much to explain on this because I was reading it, and it's like one of those things where it's like, it'll make more sense once I could witness it with my own two eyes. I was reading it and it didn't really make sense, but there's going to be 8 goalies. It's going to be an all goalies competition, and one is going to be a shooter and the other is going to actually play goalie. So a goaltender is going to shoot and a goaltender is going to play goalie, but you're going to work together to try and get like the most amount of points. So like if the goalie could hit targets, you get points, but if the goalie can make stops, you can get points. And whatever tandem has the most points wins the skills competition. But it just seemed too hard to explain because I'm like, well, you're not trying to score on your goalie. So what are they scoring? Like if you're on the same team, like how are you going to get points as a shooter? Because it didn't talk about them shooting. It's like if you shoot from a certain angle and it goes into the net, I'm like, it just didn't make sense to me. So it's just one of those things like we'll just have to wait and see how it portrays at the skills competition. But to me, it sounded cool because we've never witnessed anything like that. Like a goaltender, like 2 goalies coming together in one competition and it's like all surrounds them. That's pretty cool in my opinion. So
I honestly love all of that. That's so exciting. I literally love the skills competition and cannot wait to watch it. It's Saturday the 4th. And then the All-Star game Sunday the 5th.
Oh, the skills competition. Yeah. The All-Star game's the 5th and then the 4th is no.
Is it the 4th and 3rd?
4th and 3rd. It's the 4th and 3rd.
There you go. Okay. So excited. I literally can't wait. Next weekend. It's the weekend in between the football stuff. So very, very excited for that. I love the skills competition. I love the All-Star game. Obviously, I'll be rooting on my guy, Jack Hughes, and the Metropolitan Division. Frank, my favorite hockey story of the week, something a little local, I think is really cool. This was sent to me by my good friend, Joe Mandel, and I am featuring it as my favorite hockey story of the week because I think we could go make a video or something involving this. The town of Lockport, Illinois, is approved a new ice hockey dome for the city, a year-round use ice hockey skating facility in combination with other sports, located over 12 acres on Prime Boulevard off of 167th Street. The 71,000 square foot facility will feature 2 NHL regulation size ice rinks, speed and agility training center, full weight room, synthetic ice training area, turf field, pro shop, concession stand, and sports bar.
Wow.
The facility will also display the world's largest hockey stick outside of the front of the building, which will stand at 250 feet. The current record holder is located in Canada at 218 feet.
Wow.
I think we go make a bar down intro video in front of this ginormous hockey stick in Lockport. It's not that far using the highway.
That's actually really interesting. Who told you that?
I had the article sent to me from Joe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's really interesting.
We're going to have to go check this place out.
Absolutely.
I want to watch some hockey from this rink. I'm being dead ass serious.
71,000 square feet or 72,000.
This place is going to be freaking huge. I'm just telling you. When it's open and that stick is up, we're going. We're going to check it out. Whoever wants to come can come with. Frank and I will be there.
Absolutely.
We're making a video. You're wearing a Blackhawks jersey. I'm wearing a Devils jersey, and we are going to make a sick video there. I'm being dead ass.
You don't have to tell me twice. That's fine with me.
Maybe we'll even record a pod there.
That's actually crazy.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I mean, you know me. I love hockey. I love when other people love hockey. So Yeah, that's my favorite hockey story of the week. Lockport, Illinois, largest hockey stick ever coming
I
up.
love that VP. I really do.
Hell yeah, that's gonna be cool. Eric smoking some kush in the chat says that's dope. Yeah, I'm very excited about it. Frank, that's hockey.
Wow.
Now it's time for the sad portion of your week as we talk about what's going on in the NFL postseason in period number 3. We're just going to get right to it, Frank. We're just going to get right to it. Since about week 6, I tweeted it. Since about week 6, just something hasn't been right with the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen led the NFL in turnovers and picks this season. Something with Brian Daboll leaving really hurt the Buffalo Bills. I don't know. They were still an elite team. They were a top 5 team in the AFC. And then they got to the postseason and they barely beat, it was Skylar Thompson. Was that his name? The Miami Dolphins quarterback. They barely beat him. But they won. They got past them. And then they get to Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, who have been a significantly better team than the Buffalo Bills since about week 6. And they beat them down. Okay, if I'm grading every team that played in the postseason division round, 2 teams get an F. One of them's the New York Football Giants. I picked them to win, so I'm wrong about a game too. I went 3-1. But the Buffalo Bills, man, I didn't pick the Giants to go to the Super Bowl. I didn't spend all season long calling Daniel Jones my Super Bowl quarterback, even though he only made 1 championship game in his entire career and lost it. The Buffalo Bills, man, they fooled you. They fooled you hard. I'm not making fun of you. I've been fooled. I've been fooled plenty. I'm the biggest fool. I'm a 10 times bigger fool than anyone I know. But on this episode of Bar Down Talking Hockey, there's only one person who's got to step up there and atone for their sins, and that is you, Frank Mueller. The floor is yours. I didn't even want to text you. You told me I never text you, and I proved to you that I text you close to every single day, but I didn't have the heart to text you because I knew what was going on.
Part of
Okay,
my
I'm
heart was
sorry.
ripped out
I'm
of my
sorry.
chest.
The floor is finally yours. I'll be quiet.
Part of my heart was ripped out of my chest as each touchdown that Joe Burrow threw inch closer to the Bills' demise. It was absolutely heart-wrenching. Score 10 points at home in weather that you're more comfortable to play in over the Cincinnati Bengals. Foster's, now's not the time.
The only people the Vikes didn't fool are Frankie and Vinny.
Yeah, I wasn't high on the Vikings.
We were both out on them when the playoffs arrived.
I gotta say though, feels like a weight's been lifted off my chest.
Now you can watch football.
There's a lot of pressure every week, every game, sweating each week just because I knew that the amount of confidence and faith that I put into this Buffalo Bills team has finally come to an end. It hurts. I wanted to see Buffalo win the Super Bowl this year. I want to see Josh Allen win the Super Bowl. I hope it comes in his career. It's heart-wrenching. It really is. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals, great team. They deserve it. I have nothing against Joe Burrow. I love Joe Burrow. But when I made that take preseason, it was something I had to ride and die with no matter what. I was sinking with the ship, or we're sailing home free street, whatever you want to say, home sweet home. But now I do feel a little relieved. There's a weight lifted off. I could just enjoy the, AFC and NFC championship games. But I am heartbroken. It was a sad time. I thought for sure you were gonna say something. You're gonna text me, like the eyes at least. But yeah, That's all. That's all I got to say, VP.
If the Dolphins would have, I would have. Because, like, the Dolphins, nice story. I picked them to make the playoffs. They did, barely. But, I do like Tua. He's got to stop getting hurt. But, like, they barely squeaked by Skylar Thompson, I think his name was. When you get to Cincinnati, there's really no shame in losing the game. I know we're making fun of you a little bit, having a good time with this. But, like, in my opinion, one of those two teams, listen, I told you in December, 5 teams. You disagreed with me on one of them. Now that team's a win away from the Super Bowl, and I am thinking about picking them. But it was always from day one, in my opinion, this season. And I told you this so early on. Cincinnati, Buffalo, Kansas City, San Francisco, Philly. It was always one of those 5. Said it on this show, said it to you off camera. Now there's 4 of the 5 left. We'll see what happens there, but we'll get to the other games in a minute. But I don't think there's any shame in losing to the Bills or to the Bengals. I don't.
It hurts.
It hurts. And listen, they got manhandled. It wasn't even close. But the DeMar Hamlin thing spared you from realizing that this was your future reality 3 weeks ago.
Now, I did think the Bengals were going to beat the Bills in that game. The DeMar Hamlin incident?
Yeah, why though?
It just made the most sense. I don't know. I had a feeling they're going to win that game, and then because they came out so good in that game and it looked like they were going to dominate for the short amount of time that we saw, I thought this was the opportunity for the Bills to make adjustments and kind of like they saw their team was going downhill in that game. They were about to get blown the wheels off the wagon in that game. But because of that, I thought, all right, now the Bills know what to expect. They kind of got a little taste of the appetizer, and now they can make some adjustments, and that just didn't happen.
Let's go back in time. I think if you were to ask me around November, like let's say Thanksgiving of last year, 2021 season, name the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL. I probably would have said, in order, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers. Tom Brady's the GOAT. I probably would put him 4th, 5th, 6th, even in his 40s. He'd be 1 6 years ago, 7 years ago. But Thanksgiving last year, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers proceeded to win his 3rd MVP, or 4th MVP, 2nd in a row. Mahomes and Allen were what they were going into the playoffs. Then Joe Burrow reaches the postseason. Bengals win a big playoff game for the first time in 30 years. They go all the way to the Super Bowl, and it takes a last-minute miracle for Matthew Stafford and the Rams to beat the Bengals in the Super Bowl. They come into this year a little cold to start, but their 3 losses were by a combined 8 points. You start to ask me, name the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL by Halloween. I would have said Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers. Let's get to December. Who are the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL? My answer to that right now, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. Joe Burrow is the 2nd best quarterback in the NFL. He's the 2nd most impactful player in the NFL. And I will have no problem having him jump Mahomes if he beats him for the 4th straight time on Sunday. Now, Mahomes has a bum ankle. You saw how effective Mahomes was with the ability to scramble on the first drive against Jacksonville. Then it wasn't the same from there once he hurt his ankle. He had to rely strictly on throwing the football. Foster's in the chat begging for Hurts. Love Hurts. Going to be 2nd in MVP. I would take the 3 guys I named ahead of him personally. Mahomes, Burrow, Allen. Hurts has a chance to jump Allen next year. And Aaron Rodgers come back, win MVP again. Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson, all these great quarterbacks. But I don't know. Joe Burrow is that good. I'm not surprised that they are where they are again.
I'm not that surprised either. I always knew they had a good team. They're talented, man. And I love Joe Burrow. I'm a big Joe Burrow fan. I have nothing against the Bengals at all. I'm happy to see him here. And honestly, out of the remaining teams, I want the Bengals to win the Super Bowl. So go Joe Burrow.
Yeah. I'll always be a little partial to Joe Burrow. Out of every quarterback I've named, I've only seen one live, and it wasn't even in the NFL. Saw LSU play Georgia. I bring that up a lot. Clearly,
Okay.
I freaking loved it. It's you bring up things you like. That's one of my favorite things I've done. I don't know. I just huge on that team, and they're going to play the winner of this game, the Chiefs against the Jags. The Jags were a wonderful story. 7-1 down the stretch. I think we could fairly say Trevor Lawrence is getting himself into that discussion for the top 5, top 6, 7, 8 quarterbacks in the NFL. Probably going to be there soon. You can argue him as number 5 right now, or at least going forward. But the Chiefs got the narrow victory. Patrick Mahomes at 80% is better than most people at 150%.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling he was going to make a return to the game too. I gained respect for him for how he reacted of coming out of the game. He wanted to get back in there. He didn't even want to go get looked at and let who's the backup? I forgot his name.
Chad Henne.
Chad Henne. Yeah. He didn't even want to give Henne the opportunity to throw a pass or get into the game, but I commend him for that. That's it's somebody who loves to play football, and like you said, I would take Mahomes at 80% over most quarterbacks in the league. So we got a game on our hands. The Chiefs are preparing like Mahomes is going to play. That's what Andy Reid said. So, and even if he does play, I don't think it's going to necessarily be easy for the Bengals because we know how talented Patrick Mahomes is. So it's going to be a blockbuster of a match for sure.
There's no doubt about it. The AFC Championship game, it's the marquee game in my opinion. It has a chance to be the best football game of the season. I thought Bengals-Bills had a chance to be that. Bengals took advantage of some issues going on with Buffalo. They were injured, Buffalo, a little bit. They weren't at full strength like we've seen them, but I don't know. I just think this game has a chance to be something very, very special. We'll make our picks in a minute. Over in the NFC, the fraud conference has finally got the only 2 teams that aren't frauds left playing against each other. In my opinion, these are the 2 best teams in the NFC. And I think it's been clear that they're the 2 best teams in the NFC since about week 8. I know the Vikings fooled some people. I thought the Vikings would win their division. Never thought they'd win a single game beyond that. The Giants fooled me a little bit. I thought they might be able to sneak one
I
out of
thought they would.
They were terrible. I learned my lesson I learned a lesson that I'll probably take with me for the rest of my life when picking football games. Don't let those types of teams fool you when they play the teams that are perceived to be significantly better. If you go down the list and take the top 10 players on either team, and if the list has 9 players from one team and 1 player from another team, because I honestly believe that would be the case if you took the Giants and the Eagles and put them in a pot and named the top 10 players, the only Giant that would be on that list is Saquon Barkley. Like, nobody else on the Giants would be, and that's going to be something that's in my head going forward. And I will use that to pick games going forward. I'm going to use that method. And that's why I think this matchup between the Eagles and the 49ers is so tough, because it's probably 5-5 or 6-4. Like, it's close. And if one team has more talent, the 49ers, they don't have the better quarterback.
Right.
But, Eagles versus Giants, we both got that one wrong. What do you think?
There was not much to think. It was a boring game. It was
Stunk.
It really wasn't even worth.
Viewed by over 10 million.
Yeah, it wasn't even worth watching. It was so boring. I got to be honest. I didn't really tune in much. It was like
I would have rather Green Bay make the playoffs and at least have a close loss to the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, it was just embarrassing. I thought at least the Giants would put up a little bit more of a fight and keep it within 1 score. But I mean, come on now. That was like pitiful. Like, it's a little embarrassing. It's just there's a whole lot going on. It was just absolutely disgraceful. Truly.
The 49ers beat them boys.
That was a good game.
That was a good game, but the
Close.
Cowboys, whenever the Cowboys can, they will.
That's the Cowboys
Every
we all
year.
know and love.
That's the Cowboys, man. They make you think. And then you got the people who aren't from Dallas that are Dallas Cowboys fans, and they go, "We them boys. We beat Tampa Bay when they were 8-9 on Monday Night Football. They stink. Get them out of here, frauds."
They
Cowboys.
literally won like their first
Cowboys.
road playoff game in like decades. And then you think they're going to do it 2 times in a row?
Yeah,
Come
no
on.
shot.
I
No
mean,
shot.
we knew the Cowboys wouldn't win that game. At least I did. I hope nobody else was fooled. But I wasn't high up on the Cowboys as it is. And they're even worse on the road. So having to go on the road and play the 49ers, who I picked to go to the Super Bowl, come on. That's not going
I
to
get
happen.
it.
They got a good defense. And the way I knew that just playing the 49ers defense is different than playing the Bucks defense. And the 49ers got a better offense. And it proved it. I mean, they didn't score a ton. They only scored 19 points. But damn, did they like really shut down Dallas's offense?
I'm the only one that saw Dak Prescott for what he is since day one. How do you know that Dak Prescott in your top 10? I remember the tweets. You could win with him. I believe you could win a Super Bowl with him. Just not on that. You can't rely on him. He would win a Super Bowl with the 49ers. Right? Like, I think he could go to the 49ers and win. Not as a $40 million franchise quarterback, though. Just that's not like he could. I don't know if he could go to Kansas City and win a Super Bowl because they rely on Patrick Mahomes to make plays with those weapons. They don't have Kyle Shanahan drawing up, one of the greatest offenses ever with Mr. Irrelevant.
Right.
That's why I think he would thrive in Philly. Dallas 40 million. That's not. He's not. He has to be one of the guys, not the guy. Dak
Right.
Prescott.
I completely agree. I think Dak Prescott's a fraud. Really, the whole team is. Ezekiel Elliott's a little overrated. I like Pollard more.
Free agent. Free to go wherever he wants.
Yeah, that whole team's messed up right now, and Jerry Jones got to be livid.
You know where I would go if I was Pollard? Bills.
They need some run game.
They need a running back more than anyone, and
yeah,
way too Josh Allen centric.
I would take Pollard on the Bills.
Oh yeah. You just gotta not. Josh Allen can't be your whole offense. It's a quarterback league, but quarterbacks get better when defenses are worried that you might also run it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Lamar Jackson is so effective.
Because, I do think Josh Allen is the best big man quarterback running game. Like he's not like Josh Allen's built like a bull. So when he runs, he's not afraid to take a hit. And a lot of men his size aren't runners, but he's not afraid to take off. And when he does, he's hard to tackle. I think he's one of the best bigger men to run. Like Lamar Jackson's not as big as Josh Allen and
or
beefy.
Justin Fields.
Right. And they
Russell
all run.
Wilson.
But like for Josh Allen to have that running game, that's like he's one of the best to do it at his size.
There's a very easy comp. You got nothing?
There's a what?
A very easy comparison.
Oh, what?
I mean, he played for, I think I see a couple, there might not be a sign in the view there.
The Bears?
No.
What?
The other team cheered for in that house of yours.
No, he's not down here. Oh, he might be. He might be up there. Big Ben?
Big Ben, man. Josh Allen and Big Ben are similar. There's no doubt. Big dudes. Ben would run anywhere. He was like a bull too. I mean, freaking huge mother. He could have played the line.
I agree with Eric.
Yes, I do too. I mean,
but
he
won
an MVP doing that.
I'm saying like the bigger guys who don't run.
Yeah.
The guys who don't take off. Like who aren't built. Josh Allen isn't a quarterback built like Lamar or Justin Fields. They're not built to run. They're more passing. But when Josh Allen takes off, he looks like he could be a Lamar. He's not as quick and he doesn't move as agile, but he's not afraid to duck his head and just plow through, man. He's beefy.
I agree. He he annoyed me a little bit towards the end of the year. He got mad at everyone for hitting him. Like, dude, you're playing football. Like, relax.
Hey, that's Mr. Gillette.
Absolutely. So Frank, make your pick. Eagles versus Giants.
Eagles
Or
versus
49ers.
49ers. I gotta go. This is tough for me because
It's hard.
It's tough for me
Very
because
hard.
I'm gonna go with the 49ers, right? But a little part of me is like, we've talked about this before, and they mentioned it on the networks, as a rookie quarterback has never led their team to the Super Bowl before. Is this going to be
0
the first time? I know. Is this going to be the first time ever? I don't know, but there's a difference here. Brock Purdy is a different type of human being. He is Mr. Irrelevant, but you look at this isn't a backup like, say, if Taylor Heineke was a rookie coming in, or, Sam Howell on the Commanders, who came in a rookie and leading their team. This is a man who has proven he could play multiple games, and he has won I don't know how many games in a row, from the regular
11?
season to 2 playoff games. I mean, it's not like this is a one-off or 3-game off, or we've seen this consistently for 7 games. Brock Purdy is a talented quarterback, and I think from what we've seen so far, he is not your average rookie quarterback. He is not a Sam Howell or some other rookie quarterbacks who have debuted in the league this year. He is different. He is the best rookie quarterback that has played this season, and I think if there's anybody to do it and lead their team to the Super Bowl, it is Brock Purdy. And since I'm not going to take much stock in the Eagles beating the Giants. Wasn't really high up on the Giants. I thought the Giants can make it close, but by no means did I think they're going to, win the Super Bowl or make a run for it. So I'm not going to take much stock in that Eagles domination, because I think doing a 38-7 win like they did to the Giants, it's going to be a lot harder to do that to the 49ers, especially with a good defense. I love the way that he's been throwing the ball. I'm going to go with the 49ers in this game.
I've never, ever, ever ragged my brain more on a pick in all my years watching football. This is the hardest game I've ever tried to pick. The 49ers and the Eagles. The 49ers have a slightly better roster. The best receiver on either team is an Eagle, A.J. Brown.
Mm-hmm.
The best running back on either team is a 49er, Christian McCaffrey. The best offensive lineman on either team is probably Kelsey, the center. But the 49ers have a dude too. I'm drawing a blank on his name. He hasn't given up a sack in his career. I mean,
Yeah, I know, that's messed up.
I mean, like, it's just unbelievable how even these things. Kelsey's on the Eagles. The 49ers have this guy. The best player on either team is Nick Bosa. He's the best overall player on either team. And he's on the 49ers. So, I mean, edge 49ers slightly on roster. But the Eagles have the quarterback. And the 49ers quarterback isn't just like slightly below the other guy. Like, it's not like it's a slightly worse It's not Jimmy G versus Jalen Hurts. It's Brock Purdy, who hasn't looked all that good in the playoffs. He's an okay play. Like, he's not a good player. Like, Brock Purdy's getting a little overhyped, in my opinion. He's not going to start for them next year. It's going to be Jimmy G.
If he wins the Super Bowl, you don't think he starts?
It'll be a competition in training camp. I don't think it's a lock that he's their quarterback next year.
I think if he doesn't start, he's going to be a starter for a different team.
Maybe. This is his chance. Like, look what happened to Nick Foles after he won the Super Bowl. Sometimes you just go on a run with a good team. Like, and that's what's happening with Purdy. I hope I'm wrong. But, like, he was Mr. Irrelevant for a reason. He was one decision away from being undrafted at all. Like, I don't know. I'm racking my brain over this. I don't know who's going to win. I picked San Francisco all along. I just haven't loved what I've seen from Purdy in the postseason at all. The 49ers squeaked by in a way because they're just a better team. But they're not that much better than Philly. They have a better roster than Philly. There's no doubt in my mind. I'd pick them to cream the Eagles if they had a very good quarterback. But I don't think the roster is so much better that you can't go with the quarterback. I think I'm going to do it.
They're not even getting the home 3, the Eagles.
I know, because the 49ers are good.
I think Brock Purdy could be the real deal, man.
I don't know what to do.
I really do.
I mean, the AFC's hard too. And Mahomes' status plays into it. I think that makes it harder to pick too when we're 4 days away from the game, right? It's not like we're picking
Mhm.
on Friday, like it's Wednesday. Today's the first day where injury reports are like legit. Oh man, I don't know. I am going to pick Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers get it done. But I'm not confident. I am not confident. I think the Eagles very well could win. I think it's going to be a wonderful game.
I think.
I cannot wait for 2 p.m. on Sunday.
Is it weird? I think the 49ers may win by double digits
Yeah. Yeah.
because I don't think the Eagles are that good.
I mean, dude.
You can't go by the record.
Oh, no, I could go by the fact that they had a bye in the fucking NFL playoffs.
And they beat the Giants.
And they
wow.
killed them, though.
Wow.
They killed them.
Congrats.
They killed them.
I don't care if they won by 80. They
You
beat
should.
the Giants.
You should.
No, I don't think this is going to be close. I don't think.
My God. I think it's either going to be close or the Eagles win.
Wow.
Yeah, like
I think
I'm
the
sticking
opposite.
with the 49ers just because for both games I'm sticking with my prediction going into the playoffs. But I have not liked what I've seen from Brock Purdy, and I have liked what I've seen from the Eagles with Jalen Hurts. They're the best team in the NFC. They just don't have the best roster. Like, that doesn't make sense. The 49ers are a quarterback away from being the best team in the NFC. But the Eagles are in no way frauds. Like, you just can't call them frauds when they were the 1 seed and now they're in the championship game, and the only team that might beat them is the only other non-fraudulent team in the NFC.
Yeah,
They're not going to lose to the Vikings or to the Giants or to what other the Buccaneers, the Cowboys. Like,
to me, they got the bye. They took advantage of the bye by beating a team that's significantly worse than them. You beat Danny Dimes.
would you have picked the Cowboys?
Dimes. No, but they're just as bad because they would have been on the road.
Would you have picked Tampa?
No, the NFC stinks.
I do think the winner of the AFC is going to win the Super Bowl.
I think you think the best team in the NFC is the Eagles, and I think the best team in the NFC is the 49ers, and now they go head to head.
I don't think they're the best team in the. I think they're. It's like a
tie.
It's like a tie. Yeah, but I don't know what I'm saying. It's like a tie. I don't know.
The best team in the NFC is the 49ers, and that's why I'm choosing the 49ers over the Eagles. I'd be stunned. Of course, the Eagles were going to beat them. The Eagles would have beat Vikings, Danny Dimes, the Cowboys. I mean, what's their competition?
The Giants won a playoff game. They're not as pugilant as you make it seem. Maybe they were that bad because
and so did the
Eagles were
Cowboys
that
too.
good.
They won a playoff game too.
Okay, I wrote my tweet. You saw my tweet about the Cowboys respecting them after that win. That was the best game of Dak Prescott's career. Listen, the NFC is significantly lower than the AFC. Like, significantly. I don't
know. I don't know.
It's hard. It's really hard.
I'm not making the same mistake I did by overhyping the Giants, thinking they could get it done against the Eagles because they beat the Vikings and they look so good against the Vikings. I'm not making that same mistake because the Giants look so good because the Eagles look so good against the Giants. I'm not going to make the mistake again and just assume because they won by 31 points that they're going to be able to beat a team on a much different caliber than the 49ers. I just can't see it.
If the 49ers win by 7, that doesn't make the Eagles like fraudulent or bad. You lost by 1 score to the one team that might be better than you in your conference. Are they the second best team in the NFC?
Probably by default. There's not much else competition.
I agree that it's by default.
So I really have nothing to argue with there.
But the 49ers were losing at halftime to the Seahawks.
True. But then they really stepped up to the plate. I don't know. I think we'll see. But to me, it's not like Brock Purdy's played in 3 games and he's just getting by the skin of his nuts. I mean, he's carried, like, when Trey Lance and Garoppolo goes down and you're down to Mr. Irrelevant, you're like, uh-oh. And now we're talking about them still making it potentially to the Super Bowl. That's
Yeah.
pretty impressive. Like,
I-
come on.
I agree.
And there's a reason no rookie quarterback has ever led their team to a Super Bowl. And now this kid's 1 win away from doing that.
Yeah, including the elite ones.
Yeah.
But the 49ers, they put everybody in a good position. And that's what I'm scared of, but I'm taking the 49ers, but barely. I'll
I can't
take
wait. I
I'll
can't
take
wait
the
to see what happens.
49ers 34-28. 49ers.
I'm going to go with 28-17 49ers.
Okay. I like that score too. I won't lie. I like that score too. But if the Eagles win, it'll probably be something more along the lines of 28-21, I would think.
Yeah.
30-24, something like that.
That'd be a lot of points, though. I don't think it's going to be that high scoring.
Yeah, I don't either, really.
think
But
it
I
could
did
be
say
like
34-28. I don't know.
Or 21-17 Eagles.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't know. I'm going 28-17 49ers. And you said what?
34-28.
That's fair. All right.
Chiefs versus Bengals.
I'm going to go with the Bengals. I will gladly take 100% Joe Burrow over an 80% Patrick Mahomes. And this is another game I've been wavering on because, 3-0 Burrow is against Patrick Mahomes in his career. Something's got to give. Mahomes is just too talented of a quarterback. And even when he's not 100%, it just has a feeling like maybe he's going to get it done because he's Patrick Mahomes, right? This is also the first time in Mahomes' career that he's a playoff underdog, too, which is a little bit surprising. But when he's not 100%, you got to understand why. And it's very hard for me to pick against the Bengals with how good they've been playing. I mean, they went into Buffalo in those Buffalo type conditions that the Bengals aren't used to playing in, as bad as it gets in Buffalo, and they score 27 and only up 10. It's like, I'd be kind of surprised. I actually can't even say I'd be surprised if the Chiefs win. I wouldn't be surprised either way, but I'm leaning towards the Bengals in this one.
We agree. We agree. I wanted to pick the Chiefs. I like the Chiefs. I'll probably be rooting for them, but I also root for Joe Burrow. So, like, really my thought is I'm rooting for the winner of this game to win the Super Bowl. Like, that's set in stone. I will be rooting for the AFC in the Super Bowl this year. I'll be betting on the AFC in the Super Bowl this year. Just Skylar agrees with both of us. I think Joe Burrow gets it done. The Jacksonville Jaguars came close to getting it done against them, and they're not quite where the Bengals are yet. So,
Exactly.
And now they have a whole game of Mahomes with the rolled ankle or high ankle sprain, whatever it is. I'm going with the Bengals. 31-20.
I'm going exactly with Foster. I love that score at 28-24. I could see it coming down near the one last drive by Patrick Mahomes potentially to either win the game and go up 31-28 or, be stopped by the Cincinnati Bengals and the Bengals win 28-24. So we'll see. I do think Bengals 49ers, that's my pick. And if that is the Super Bowl, what a good Super Bowl that would be.
It really would be. Very much would look forward to that. Next week on Bar Down, we're going to recap the games, but not make our Super Bowl predictions. We're going to save that for the following week because there's 2 weeks in between. So next week we'll recap Championship Sunday, but not preview the Super Bowl yet.
Mm-hmm.
So excited for all that. Of course, tomorrow on Crosstown Crosstalk, you could tune in and catch me interviewing Twins Ted. And then I believe we have a Cubs guest as well. So I'm very much looking forward to just talking some baseball tomorrow on Crosstown Crosstalk with everyone. Frank, is there anything else you have left to say on the National Football League?
We're in for a treat this weekend. That's all I'm going to say.
Yep. I cannot wait. I mean,
I'm really excited.
I literally can't wait for Championship.
Championship
Sunday's better than
we should watch the game together. Unless you're busy.
I have a fantasy football party.
Oh, okay.
But we'll be watching the Super Bowl together.
Yep.
I cannot wait for championships. It's like 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah,
It's like 2 games almost as important as the Super Bowl.
it really is.
So I think it's the best weekend of the year in football, at least. I mean, Super Bowl too. Super Bowl has the snacks and the commercials and the party and all that. I just happen to have a fantasy football party for the championship Sunday this year, but I cannot wait. Going to be so much fun. And I think Frankie might touch on it a little bit in America's favorite podcast segment of the week, Breaking Bets.
Where's my money, bitch?
Welcome to Breaking Bets. Sup?
We had a very good week last week. We went 3-1. That definitely got the winning percentage up a little bit. We peaked above 50% again. Very, very good week. The only thing that screwed us were the freaking Giants and the 7.5. But ultimately, we're 0-2 on football in 2023 so far on Breaking Bets.
Because you don't listen to me.
But this week's different story. So I could start off with my football pick. Bengals and Chiefs. Love the Bengals -1 here at -108. Burrow's 3-0 versus Mahomes. Mahomes not 100%. It's all the stuff we touched on in the third period. This is the first time they're an underdog in a playoff game, but it's very hard not to choose the Chiefs at home as dogs. It's very hard. But it just seems there's also just too much value on the Bengals at only -1 as well. So I'm going to go lean Bengals -1 at -108. Maybe by this time next week, we'll have our first Breaking Bets NFL win in the column. We'll see. As far as that goes, Hurricanes play the Dallas Stars tonight. Talk about a premier hockey game. That's going to be a good one. Vinny, I'm sure you're going to be tuned in a little bit. You're rooting for the Hurricanes to lose so the Devils can scoop right in and snag the number 1 in the Metropolitan Division. And I'm going to side with the Dallas Stars here. And I'm going to hope for your benefit. Hope the Dallas Stars win. Dallas money line is only -106. They're coming off a home loss against the Buffalo Sabres in a game they should have won. They were pretty decently favored in that game, but it just proved that the Buffalo Sabres were just too hot. They're just too hot right now, and they're able to take down the Dallas Stars at home. But I can't tell you the last time the Dallas Stars lost 2 in a row at home. I think this is a great spot to, get back into winning ways. They've only lost 5 in regulation at home all season and 4 in overtime or a shootout. So I think this is a great opportunity to rebound. Obviously, no Patches out with a torn Achilles. Just seems like there's very good value on Dallas at home. Money line -106. My next play is my favorite play of the day. So watch it. I'll end up losing. But no, I have very good reasoning behind it. West Virginia plays Texas Tech in a Big 12 battle. West Virginia, 1-4 on the road, 1-6 in Big 12 play. Taking on Texas Tech, who is 8-3 at home, but they haven't won in the Big 12. They're 0-7 in the Big 12. That being said, Texas Tech comes in at 3.5-point favorites, but instead with dabbling with the points, just take Texas Tech money line at -175. I think they're finally going to get their first win in Big 12 play tonight against West Virginia. There's not a better chance to do it. They're home. They're 8-3 at home. They're playing West Virginia, who also has struggled in the Big 12, who's only 1-6 in conference play and 1-4 on the road. They're not a very good road team. So if there was any better time to get your first conference win against the team, it is at home against another team who struggles in the conference. So I love Texas Tech money line. That's my play of the day. Finally, I want to wrap up in the NBA because I've only given one NBA pick in 2023. And that was like a big part of 2022 is giving away NBA picks. Well, the Atlanta Hawks are playing the Oklahoma City Thunder. Hawks are terrible on the road. They're really bad on the road. Sometimes I don't understand how it could be night and day when you play at home or on the road, but they've been playing, the Thunder have been playing well. They came in and they beat Denver Nuggets on the road. They beat the Brooklyn Nets on the road. They beat the Bulls on the road, which isn't too much to take away because the Bulls stink. But nonetheless, they have some big road wins under them. Now they come home against a struggling Hawks road team, and they're getting 2.5 points at home. I love the way the Thunder are playing right now. I think taking the 2 points is great value. You could take the Thunder in 2 at -114. And I think they're going to get it done tonight at home and potentially win outright, but take, the safer option and take the 2 points just to cover yourself if any late fish happens. But those are my 4 picks for you. So hopefully that winning percentage next week will peak above 55. Obviously, if we have a winning week, I don't know if it necessarily get up to 60 unless we like swept the board, but we'll see. Just trending in the upward direction.
That's what we like to hear. That is what we like to hear. That was some good stuff right there. I hope the Hurricanes lose. The Devils could be in first place tonight. If the Devils are in first place tonight when my head hits the pillow, oh, yeah. Sign me up.
I agree, VP. Go Dallas.
Go Stars. Go Stars. Frank, what are you watching this weekend?
Did Joey tell you that Hell's Kitchen, my 2 guys were the last standing? Everybody else is toasted. Yeah.
Wow. I did
Two,
not.
two. It was down to me and Joey, and 2 people went home, and they were both his guys, both his people. And he texted me saying the odds of that happening are like astronomical. So I'll be watching Hell's Kitchen this week, which is on tomorrow. You know what we got to watch, VP? Oh, I've been watching The Last of Us too. That's fantastic. Fantastic show. Be watching The Last of Us. Working on season 5 of Thrones right now, and hope to have Thrones finished relatively soon. But you know what we need to watch, VP? We need to watch Wakanda Forever before Ant-Man and the Wasp. So we got to get that done. That debuts on Disney Plus on February 1st. So hopefully we can get that done within the next week and a half or so. But just the AFC Championship, NFC Championship, stuff like that. But yeah, that's all I'm really watching this week. How about you?
Football.
Well, we know that.
I mean, what else?
Like you're saying, you're gonna watch the Devils. No shit. But...
Devils play twice.
So
listen to this. They play tomorrow against the Nashville Predators, then Friday against the Dallas Stars, and then I don't have the Devils for like 8 days, because they have the bye after the All-Star game.
that's
So
rough.
2 road games and then some off time from the Devils.
VP needs a break, right, VP?
Yeah, they need a break. I don't need a break. I just watch.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
You're right about it.
I write a lot.
Yeah, so
I'm covering a lot of teams right now.
exactly.
We're probably pushing 100 articles just from me this month. So that's probably going to be my most ever in a month.
Wow.
So
How many?
like 100.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's insane.
it's like 3 or more a day.
Yeah, that's
And,
ridiculous.
Most days are like 5 or 6, and then the weekends slow things down a little bit. But gotta have a big finish to the month. So
Absolutely.
grinding all the time.
Awesome.
The
That's good to hear.
Devils make it easy right now, though. I mean, they're the best team I cheer for by far. And I haven't said, when's the last time the Devils out of the Bears, White Sox, Huskies, Devils, when's the last time the Devils were the best of those 4? I mean, 2012?
Yeah.
Because
Could
the Sox have a couple division championships in there, or a couple playoff appearances. The Bears suck. They have 1 playoff appearance with a division title, and they fucking double doink their way out. The Huskies have a couple MAC titles, so that's probably the best team I cheer for over like the last 10 years. Tom. Oh, I'm a champion with Tom. That's right, Tom. I ride and die with Tom. I have like 1,000 championships with Tom, so that's nice. But the Devils are good. There's no doubt.
Yeah, they are for sure.
It's January 25th. I mean, there are good teams, bad teams, and bubble teams now. There's really not many more question marks. So I appreciate you adding Black and Teal and Puck Pros to that, though, because Puck Pros, I always write on Puck Pros whenever something I feel that's big happened.
Mhm,
Like when Stamkos scored his 500th. Boom, on Puck Pros wrote about it.
mhm.
I watched that sick, beautiful masterpiece of a game between the Flames and the Blue Jackets 2 nights ago. Wrote about that. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. How about you? App Trigger.
App Trigger's been phenomenal. I wrote an article yesterday just because I normally don't write articles like this. Normally I'm covering some of the bigger stuff, right? Dead Space is coming out and we got tons of great I've been trying to find ways to write about, um Madden and incorporating what we've been seeing in the playoffs so far and stuff like that. But I wrote an article yesterday on this indie game developer who just released one of the largest priced video games in Steam history. It's $2,000 the video game, and it only takes 2 hours to beat the whole game, and it doesn't look that good, but it was very intriguing. So I wrote an article on that. App Trigger's been phenomenal. Um, like I said, right now, I've said this before. This is some of the best time to get into gaming. We're a month away from Hogwarts Legacy. Comes out in February. If you have next generation consoles, if you're waiting to get it on the Xbox One or the PS4, you're gonna have to wait till April, and Switch you'll have to wait till June. But if you have next gen, which we're gonna have to stop calling next gen and start calling it current gen because it's been around for 3 years. But if you have a Xbox One or PlayStation 5, you could, or Xbox Series X or S, PlayStation 5, you could get that on that in February. So that should be interesting. This is some of the best time to be a gamer. A lot of good games that came out in 2022. A lot of good games are going to come out in 2023. I know, Vin, you're going to probably get Tears of the Kingdom, Legend of Zelda. So lots to look forward to. And if you want to read more on any of the stuff I mentioned, you can check me out at apptrigger.com to read all my great articles. So,
Can't wait for Hogwarts. Can't wait for Zelda. Let's go.
Yep.
Got it.
hell yeah. You're ready.
Oh,
You're
I'm ready.
primed and ready to go. You think you'll
Yeah.
get it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. 100%. Can't wait. Make sure you read all Frankie's shit at apptrigger.com. Make sure you read all my shit at one of the 5 sites. I'm not naming them all right now. Go to at Vinny Parisi on Twitter to find them. Go to at the King Bean on Twitter to find him. I hope you enjoy watching all of the great shows here at the Barroom Network this week and weekend. Got Championship Sunday coming up. So Bare Their Souls aired Monday. Great episode. Watched a little bit of the beginning of it yesterday. Mike North, Science Fiction. The Bulls guys are going. Tomorrow's Crosstown Crosstalk. Big 2-guest Crosstown Crosstalk tomorrow. And
Should be a good time, VP.
yeah, we'll be getting ready. We'll be right back here next week going over what's going on in the NHL and recapping what happened on Championship Sunday.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait.
So very much looking forward to that. I hope everybody has a safe weekend. If you live in the Midwest right now, chances are you can look out your window and see plenty of white stuff falling from the sky. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay hockey. As always, thank you for listening.
Thank you.